This episode of Unemployable is quite unique. It is a 2.5-hour sit down with myself and one of my good friends, Tommy, who turned the mic on me and unpacked 30 years of my business career. Now, even those of you that have followed me for a long time will learn parts of my life that I haven't previously spoken about. And I've included throughout the video, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see it, a whole bunch of previously unreleased photos from my adventures over 30 years of business, from all the way back when I was in my early 20s to some pretty unique insights to experiences that I've been blessed to have over the years. Now, I was very hesitant to do this podcast because Tommy said to me, Adam, I think it's time we actually did sort of a This Is Your Life interview with you, but you need to be vulnerable, you need to be open, and you need to share stuff that you haven't shared before. So that's what this is. It's a fairly revealing interview. Some parts of it I'll watch back and I'm like, oh, maybe I don't want to talk about that publicly, but I do. So hopefully you find it interesting. If you do, please drop us a subscription and a like, and most of all, drop us a comment. I'd love to see what you think of this 30-year journey. And if anything, for me, when I watch this back, I'm reminded of what Gary Vee says, which is don't compare your year 1 to somebody else's year 30 if you're starting in business. Now, remember, I'm 51 years old when this was recorded, and I've been doing this since I was in my late teens. And in that time, as you'll soon see, I learned through mostly failure. So I hope this podcast is received well. I hope you enjoy it. Have a great day, and bye for now.
Adam Hudson is known today as the co-founder of Unemployable Media and the voice behind the Unemployable podcast. Along the way, he's built global businesses, worked on major documentary projects, including one connected to the life of Larry King Live, and quietly supported humanitarian work through the Fawcett Foundation and in places like the Females Orphanage in Sri Lanka. But this story isn't about what Adam has done. It's about who he became along the way, because before the platforms, the freedom, and the label Unemployable, he was just an ordinary Aussie trying to work out why the life he was supposed to want didn't feel right.
Great intro.
Adam John Hudson, this is your life.
Oh, here we go.
Do you remember that show?
Tommy, I think you've got a knack for this business of podcasting. You got to start your own pod. It's a great intro. It's interesting though, because just for the listener, to bring them in on a conversation we've had over the weekend that you've been here, Tommy and I would love to do a show like this where we sit down and talk to people in a deep way about their lives, and especially people who've relocated overseas and pursued adventures. And so this is sort of like a trial run for that, complete with dogs barking and roosters in the background.
Yeah, and hopefully rain abating. Yeah. So, mate, before the man we see today, the boy, take us back. Where did you grow up? Where were you born? Where did you grow up? And give us the environment and with the family and the emotions and everything that were happening back then as a boy.
Wow. Okay. So let's start there. So I was born in Adelaide on Henley Beach.
Great place. Like we're all great people.
Well, we figured out that you were also born in Adelaide just recently. Born in Adelaide, Henley Beach. My mum and dad were 10-pound Poms. Came out after the war on the boats and moved to Elizabeth. My mum was the first Miss Elizabeth. When she was 14 or 15, my grandmother snuck her into a beauty contest. And to this day in Westfield, Elizabeth, in the food court, there's a big history of Elizabeth, and my mum's mural is up there on the wall. But very young, we moved to Canberra. My dad got a job with the government, and so I grew up in Canberra until the stock market crashed, and then we moved to Queanbeyan.
What year was that?
I think it was 87.
87.
Yeah, and then we moved to Queanbeyan. So we went from living quite a good life. My dad did really well in the share market, even though he was on a single family income, working as a teacher in TAFE. And then the stock market blew up, and then we had to go to Queanbeyan, and we lived above a dry cleaner's shop in Queanbeyan.
Right. Okay. And as a kid, I mean, did you feel sort of safe, seen, validated as a child?
I had the best mum in the world, and my dad did the best he could too. I look back on it now, and I think, 3 young boys, one income. It's never easy bringing three kids up. Yeah, look, I think I had a great childhood. Like growing up in Canberra, kids don't think about money. We were solidly middle class. But there was often times we didn't have money for a lot of things, but we didn't feel poor at any point. I think my biggest challenge growing up, there was two. One, I was brought up, a challenge and a blessing, in a really strict Christian church, like a Pentecostal church that was almost cultish in nature. And I also had really bad teeth. So my mum, as a result of some antibiotics or something, all my teeth had brown stains and gaps, and people didn't know whether to smile back or kick a field goal when they saw me. It was just all over the place. And I've always had these big teeth, but they were always messed up. So that was one of the things I fixed when I could afford to do that, to the best of the dentist's ability.
Right.
So yeah, I was a bit of an outsider from those types of things. I'm mercilessly teased as a child for being a full-on Christian and having messed up teeth. But other than that, I think I developed my personality and sense of humor and knew how to sort of win favor of people without being the best-looking kid in the class.
So how did you do that?
Oh, I think just making people laugh and learning people skills. I was always quite I think, gregarious, and it made friends easily,
Right.
But no, I wouldn't say I had a bad childhood or anything like that. And I was so blessed to have just such a loving mum whose whole world was the three of us,
Right.
boys. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you felt you pretty well belonged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. A bit of an outsider because of the church, but even the church had benefits too, right? We got taught values, and we were taught musical instruments and different things like that.
That was a big influence in the family, wasn't it? The church.
Huge. Yep.
Where you one that felt, were you questioning it back then, or were you fully aligned, following the rules, and were comfortable doing that?
No. The older I got and the more I was able to critically think, the less it all made sense to me. So I became quite I find a very dark sense of humor today, because it's the antithesis of Christianity and rules. Right. So anybody that really goes to the extreme at the other end, it just tickles my funny bone.
Right.
So I'm sort of a slingshot Christian. I went the other way.
Slingshot Christian, so you kind of rebelled and ran the other way.
Yeah, well, look, I got married when I was 19.
Not everybody would know this.
Not everyone would know that. So I was married at 19 because no sex before marriage in my church, and there was probably only about 5 girls to choose from.
Right.
So just pretty in your local church, right?
Right.
That were in your age bracket at
Right.
that time. So that was your pool.
Wow.
So you got married super young, and obviously a couple of years after I got married, realized this was a mistake.
Right.
Way too young, didn't know who I was, and got divorced. It took me 7 years to work up the courage to get a divorce, even though I knew probably 2 years in it wasn't right. Just because of all the sin and stuff attached to sort of breaking up. But yeah, anyway, so I left the church and then broke up, a couple of years after that.
Wow. Okay. So, and then the woman that you married, I mean, what were that you can remember were the drivers to actually get married back then?
To get laid.
To get laid. I was going to leave that open for you. I was going to take it.
No, I mean, I was 19. I'm I had all the chemicals running through a 19-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Raging hormones, and you're in this incubator, and I did wait till my wedding night to actually have my first experience, and I was great for 12 seconds.
Marathon man. You go at it.
You could not accuse me of that. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Right. Look, I guess you sort of made up for it since then.
Easy, Tommy. Let's move along.
Let's keep it clean. Let's keep it on the rails. Right. All right. Well, I mean,
one of the greatest gifts that Bitcoin gives us is the ability to be completely sovereign and to never have to rely on a third party to access or move our economic power that is given to us through Bitcoin. It is so critical, in my opinion, that you learn to be a proper sovereign Bitcoin holder through self-custody, meaning you do not leave your Bitcoin on exchanges. You do not entrust it to any third party of any kind, whether it be a bank or a professional Bitcoin custodial service that will charge you a percentage of your Bitcoin stack. If you learn to do it yourself, you are free. You can travel freely. You are in charge of your own money, and nobody can ever get between you and your stored economic power. In my opinion, the best people in the world to teach you how to do this step by step, because let's face it, for most of us, custodying our own money without any banks or anybody else involved is brand new, it's overwhelming, and frankly, it can be scary. But if you work with the team at the Bitcoin Way, their team of experts will work with you one-on-one. I'm a client of theirs. I went through the exact same process, and they trained me to become my own chief financial security officer. And now I'm completely free and educated. My Bitcoin is stored securely using air-gapped wallets and a complete protocol, including how to transition it to my family in the event of me dying. It's an amazing, amazing service. Go to the bitcoinway.com/unemployable. That is thebitcoinway.com/unemployable for your free consultation today. I hope you're enjoying the pod. Now let's get back to it.
So what was missing, or what were you craving then as you sort of like matured through this, the marriage divorce? I mean, maybe we could dig a little there, if that's okay, into why you decided then to get divorced.
Oh yeah, why I decided. I mean, I just knew it wasn't right. You know, like I wanted to experience other people, other places. I wanted to be free. Like I'd only been with one person in my whole life.
Right.
And so, you know, I just hadn't explored that whole side of myself, and I couldn't within the bounds of marriage. So I wanted to, you know, experience more of life, and it became evident that we were wired differently.
Yeah.
So I discovered entrepreneurship before I left the church.
Right.
Aussie, yeah. So before I left the church, it's gone, yeah. Just before I left the church, I met a guy who was the only entrepreneur really in the church. And he turned up to church in a red Porsche 911 and one day, and I went, oh my God, like what does he do? Now being a 17, 18-year-old kid, that's the only thing.
Impressionable.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you see somebody roll up in a Ferrari or a Porsche when you're a kid,
Right.
it's just like that guy. That's who I want to be. Whatever he does, I want to do that.
Right.
Anyway, so I asked around, I said, what does he do? And they said, he's an entrepreneur. And I said, what's an entrepreneur? And they explained, to somebody who makes their own money. Unemployable, right? Right, all the way back then.
Right.
And so I befriended him, and he owned 7 photo shops, 1-hour photo shops. Talk about a business that got disrupted. But so he owned that, and he did real estate development. So just little townies and splitties and things like that. And that was my first exposure. And then, you know, because I started to think about those things, somebody recruited me into Amway, and then they gave me a book called The Magic of Thinking Big by Douglas or David Swartz. And then I read that, and that set me on that whole path of personal growth. And that was like the match that lit the fire in me.
Right.
And so I got married at 19, and then I became super ambitious and started my first business when I was, I don't know, 20 or something like that.
Right.
Outside of Amway, like my first crack at something.
Oh yeah, good on Amway.
And yeah, my wife wanted to, I think, just have a family and a simple life, and you know, get a house and pay it off and have some kids.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I want to be Tony Robbins. You know, like this is when Anthony Robbins was super young and wearing the suspenders, and I was listening to Unlimited Power, and we were just clearly just in different paths. And she held on for as long as she could, and tried her best and everything. But it's just, I wanted so much more from my life.
Right.
And so, yeah, ultimately we split, and I continued on.
So, I mean, the freedom thing seemed to kind of kick in pretty early.
Oh yeah, very early. As soon as I heard what an entrepreneur was, I knew that's what I wanted to be.
Right.
I wanted to create ideas and bring them to life and earn my own money. I didn't want to work for a boss. I was actually quite bright at school. Like I was good at math and I was good at English, but what was missing was the context of how am I ever going to use this?
Yeah.
And so once I discovered entrepreneurship, I was like, it just captured me. I was like, and I tried so many different things, you know, and that went back even earlier. I mean, I was naturally an entrepreneur. I mean, I would go around, and when we lived in Queanbeyan, I would go door to door with my dad's lawnmower and a bucket with some car wash in it, and I'd say, "Can I mow your lawn or wash your cars?" So I always had that drive. I was the one of the three of us boys that would go and do the paper rounds, and I get 13 cents per paper that I deliver.
Right.
I get chased off lawns by dogs, and I always had this desire to make my own money. Yeah, and the initial drive actually came from I can still remember it, exactly where I was standing, because my dad, looking back, was probably under quite a bit of financial pressure, and he used to sort of wield the household pretty tightly from a financial side. And I remember one day having this raging argument with Dad about something to do with money or not being able to get what I wanted or whatever. Yeah. And he said, "Well, when you make your own money and you live in your own house and pay your own bills, you can make your own rules." And I'm like, "Well, that's exactly what I'm going to do."
Sold.
Yeah.
Deal.
Yeah, I'm going to make more than you. And, and my first big driving passion in life was to earn more than my dad, and that took me to about the age of 23 to achieve, or 22.
Right.
But it was not a great positive drive. And I discovered at a Tony Robbins event on the Gold Coast what my drive was, and went, "Oh, that's not super positive, and now I need to set new drives."
Right. Okay. In advance of one of my next questions, kinda. But it sounds like, so the relationship, let's say, with your mother versus your father.
Mm-hmm.
Give me let's paint a picture for the viewers on how Dad was, or how you felt Dad was, and to you particularly.
Yeah, it's changed over the years. I think when you're younger, as a younger man, when I was younger, if you'd asked me this question 10 years ago,
Yeah.
I would have said, "I'm all my mum. I'm just, I'm so much like my mum." And my dad was a hard ass, and, he was very tight with money, and almost to the point of cruel at times. But as one of Dad's friends actually said to me, I think it was about 5 years ago, he said, "You're such a great blend of your mum and your dad." And he was the only person that's ever said that. Everybody else says, "I look like my mum. I've got my mum's heart and kindness and
Right.
and all the things." My mum was a really sweet, kind person.
Right.
But my dad was always trying to do deals, and like outside of his day job, he like to this day in Adelaide, in Henley, there's a Hudson Towers, which is my dad and his mate built this little apartment block. I think there's probably 6 or 7 apartments there.
Right.
So he was building and he was doing things and trying to find houses and split them, and he was always giving things a go.
Right.
And he said, "You got your dad's hustle and your mum's kindness." And I never thought about it until that time. I thought, what, I probably do owe Dad a bit of that entrepreneurial drive.
Right.
But I mean, my relationship with Dad was, he was a hard dad at that time. I remember distinctly, like one day I was at school and we were playing this stupid game, and it resulted in me getting my lip split from the base of my nose down to here, pretty much open.
Right.
And Dad coming to school and just ripping into me, like I'm literally blood, like split, totally pissed off that he got called away from work to take me to hospital because I was being a little dickhead, and so I'm over these stitches and an angry dad. Or, like if we were playing cricket in the backyard, and I think it was me that hit the cricket ball and went and broke the window. It was a fearsome, like we were, like we knew what we would be facing. But I don't know if that was unusual for the times. It was just, those were the times.
Yeah. I mean, your brothers as well?
Same
deal?
Ben might have even copped it worse than me, my older brother. But we all adored our mum.
Right.
But looking back and having seen my 2 brothers each have 3 kids now, and seeing how much work and how stressful and how much lack of gratitude there is at times from children,
Yeah.
I sort of have a bit more empathy for Dad, and he's now 86,
Right.
so, and he's softened a lot now, much later in life, and Mum died when she was 58. So so I don't really hold any angst or anything towards Dad anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I had similar reflections and look at what parts of me came from both sides, and I think you do reflect that way as you sort of get a bit older.
Yeah.
So Mum passed at 58. I know you had a close relationship with Patricia.
Yeah.
That was tough. I mean, how was that leading up to that? And
Yeah.
then the actual, where did that change things for you in life as well?
Yeah, I think that's easily the most significant moment in my life, was losing my mum, especially now that I'm nearly 52.
Yeah.
She died at 58.
Right.
Which, I went and did a full body scan and
Yeah.
stuff just in the last few weeks, because I'm aware that, my mum died of a brain tumor, and she had the BRCA gene, which means that I'm predisposed to brain tumors more as a result of that. But yeah, it was definitely a formative experience. She had cancer, the brain tumor the first time, and they thought they got it all. They did the operations and everything, and then it came back 6 years later or 7 years later or something, and then she died within a year or two the next time it came back. But I think Mum also, her relationship with my dad was, obviously quite strained, at times. And when the loves of her life, being the three boys, left home, as boys do, I think Mum was kind of a bit heartbroken by the three of us, leaving. And I don't think she felt that she had a lot to, because it was well before any of my two brothers had kids, and she was really struggling. And she sort of said to me, I think she was quite happy to leave when she did. But yeah, I mean, I just look at it and go, look, I was very blessed that it happened like that. And I'm talking purely selfishly from my point of view, as somebody whose parent dies with plenty of warning, you get time to say your goodbyes and express all those things. I feel so terribly for anybody who gets a phone call just in a clear blue day or in the middle of the night saying, hey, your mum's died, or your dad's died, or your son's dead, or
Unexpectedly.
Oh my God, like the lack of resolution would be just horrific. Whereas we had time to be with Mum and but watching her go through the process was really difficult, because you watch that person literally
Slowly fade away.
just disappear. They just disappear in front of your eyes to the disease. But I still feel very close to my mum. Like everywhere I go, I travel with, like
The photo goes everywhere where you see it, and it's almost like if you purposely got it in the frame too. Sometimes, or at least it looks that way.
Yeah, I take her with me everywhere I travel, anywhere in the world. I set her up in the room where I am, which is nice. So,
is that? I mean, the qualities that you have. Like we talk about, the Fawcett Foundation. The girls in Sri Lanka. I mean, is that where that comes from, or is it somewhere else?
No, I think it's probably from Mum. I mean, Mum was a Christian that was really a Christian, right? Like, as in, she's that woman that would stop and talk to a homeless guy on the street that many people would find intimidating. And she was a small, frail lady. She wasn't a big, stocky woman. She was a petite, brown-haired, brown-eyed English woman. Just such a lovely human being. Her sister Pauline is still alive in Adelaide, and she's also wonderful. But Mum, and we would see that. We would see Mum stop and talk and say, hey, what do you need? And she'd go up and get him a cup of tea down at the local cafe. And Mum would get an allowance from Dad that was very, very small. And she would use that to give to someone else. And we always saw that. She always had that thing where she would see people in need or see someone struggling, and she just had it in her. And I had it in me. I was always that kid that would befriend the guy in the class that was the odd one, that was set aside. And one of my best mates was a guy called Alex Benke. He's probably sadly passed away. He had cystic fibrosis, and he had the bulbous fingernails and just all those things that come with, these disease. And I immediately befriended him, and was the one. There was a guy at our church called Greg who was really seriously disabled, and everybody sort of keep their distance, and I would make really good friends with him and go around. And he was like, I think he was probably 45 at that time, and I would have been 18. But he had the intellectual capacity of maybe a 12-year-old. And I would go around to his parents' house in Waverley, Wavell Heights in Brisbane, and they would always just welcome me so warmly, because I was the only one that actually came to see Greg's train set. And I used to go and play with him downstairs, and he just would love to show me his trains, and I'd sit there for an hour, and his mum would make me a sandwich and cut it up. We'd sit there, and I was going, this is the best, His mum would make these wicked sandwiches. But I always befriended those sort of people on the fringes for whatever reason. And I think it was just because of my mum. I remember one day when I coming home, and this isn't to be patting my back, I'm just trying to give you an insight, was just because I haven't spoken about this probably for years, but I come home from school one day on my BMX and I remember seeing an old lady just struggling to rake the leaves in her front yard. And I was just on my bike, and I don't know, I was 10, something like that, with my big messed up teeth. And I stopped and said, "Can I help you with that?" And she goes, "Oh, that would be amazing." So I swept it all up and put it in the bin. And then she goes, "Wait here, dear, wait here." And she sent me off with $1, like $1.
Back then, that was a few bucks.
Yeah.
Before debasement.
And and a jar of honey and a note. She said, "Give this to your mum." And I was stoked. I couldn't believe I made $1. Like, I didn't even do it for the money, but I got the $1.
Yeah.
I gave her, and the note said, "Your son Adam is stopped and helped me, and I just thought you should know I'm at number 34, whatever the street was." And I think I got Mum obviously was very proud of me, and I think that sort of early stage of being able to do that stuff and seeing the reaction, I just always loved it.
Yeah. And so, let's say you're somewhere in your 20s, you're an entrepreneur already. Did you ever work for anybody?
I did. I worked for my dad ended up buying a 1-hour photo shop off the guy with the Porsche in Browns Plains.
Right.
And so I ended up working at that 1-hour photo shop with my dad. But that business was ultimately doomed for two reasons. One was right across the road was Grand Plaza, which is the big shopping centre in Browns Plains, opened. So I was there before that opened.
Right.
And so it was this little sort of strip mall, and we were there was another guy nearby, but that was it. There was 2 photo shops. Then Grand Plaza opened, and 3, Kodak shops, and big budget went in there and undercut us on price. And then, of course, things went digital. And so that business ultimately closed. But I worked there. And then I got a job for Kirby vacuum cleaners, selling door to door.
Oh, the Kirby's.
Yeah.
Door knocking.
I sold vacuum cleaners in Ipswich and Woodridge and Inala. And I remember still to this day, we used to go and knock on the door and literally have to sell a $3,000 vacuum cleaner to somebody who already had a vacuum cleaner.
Right, yeah.
And I managed to sell on average 1 a day, which is pretty wild. So that was a whole experience. And so then I did that. Then I went to Godfrey's, and I worked for Godfrey's vacuum cleaners.
Oh, God, in Adelaide.
Yeah, that's where they started.
Yeah.
And they're all over.
Right.
I don't know if they're still solvent now. I think they might have gone bankrupt. I'm not sure. And then I got a job in a picture framing shop, and that was the last job I had, and I was 21 at that time. Right. And that's when I went full time in a side hustle that I'd started.
Right.
Grew to the point where I could let go of my jobs, and I just
Work
did that.
with Dad.
Well, no, that was already finished by then. I'd been selling vacuum cleaners and working Godfrey's. And then I went full time in my side hustle, and that was the last time. I think I was 21 or 22 when I became unemployable and never went back.
Right. The side hustle was?
So I got this magazine. I was working at the picture framing shop in Toombul, which was my last job. Right. And I was reading all the books and attending whatever seminar I could save up to go to. And there was a magazine at the time called The Rob Report, which was an American magazine, and it was just ridiculously expensive things in it. And I used to just look at like these amazing homes in America and private jets and vans that were all fitted out with TV screens in the back and stuff. And there was this ad, this quarter-page ad, right at the back. And it said, learn to create 6 figures a year working from home in the personal development and success industry. And there was a Canadian number there, an American number, an 800 number in the States. And I was like, that sounds amazing. And so I had to figure out how to do an international call, and I ended up speaking to this guy called Phil Ross. And Phil, there was 30,000 distributors of these courses around the world. There was 4 courses, and you start off selling the $2,000 course, which was a box of tapes and a big workbook and some coaching that were recorded. And Phil Ross picks up the phone. He's in Canada, and he was silver-haired, very sophisticated. He's still alive today. I almost think I could probably recite his phone number for reasons I'll tell you in a minute. And Phil was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm 21. I work in a picture framing shop." And he was like, "Great, let's get started. Send over the $2,000." And I had to save up the $2,000, and I had to wire the money over. And like a couple of weeks later, these tapes turned up. And he taught me how to he said, "All right, we need to run ads, and like what I've run, but you need to figure out how to do it in Australia. And people are going to call you, and you and I are going to sell them on this course. And once they've gone through and sold some programs, they can be a distributor as well. So you had to sell 6 programs before you could buy the courses off the company wholesale, and then that was it. So it was sort of like a multi-level marketing, but it just cut out at 6, so it didn't go down forever.
Right.
And so I got these tapes, and I put ads in the Quest newspapers, little line ads, and I had a beeper, and you would call up, and the line ads would say basically what his ad said: work from home, learn to make money. People would call up, and my secretary, who worked for Orange Pages, welcome to Adam Hudson's office, because I was working at a picture framing shop at Toombul. Now my lunch break, I'd call them all back, say, hi, sorry, I've just been busy, and look, I've got to get back to it, but look, I've got a presentation. If you're interested in becoming a distributor, it's at my home. And I made the big move just before this, from Browns Plains to Hamilton, and I got a little 2-bedroom apartment. And every Wednesday night I would do a presentation
in
Brisbane.
It's in Brisbane.
In Brisbane.
From Canberra to Brisbane now.
Yeah, I was in Brisbane. This is Toombul's in Brisbane. And so what would happen is they would come in, and there'd be 10 people that had come from the Quest newspaper group sitting in my living room, and my wife would put some sausage rolls on, Pam, and we'd sit there, and I'd do my little presentation, and I'd play the videotape that Phil sent me from Canada, the VHS tape.
Like they would have told you, just play this.
Play the tape, say these things, and then call Phil.
Right.
And I had the phone. Yeah, he was the closer. But it was like 2 a.m. in the morning in Canada, and he would sit up every Wednesday night to take the call from me. Wow. And he'd go, hey, how you doing down there in Australia? And he has a really dry sense of humour. Right. And he'd say, so Tommy, based on what Adam's shown you there tonight, on a scale of 1 to 10, like 10 being you're ready to get started.
How emotionally captured has he got you?
Yeah, he goes in a 1. And of course, there'd be some guy I'd go, well, I think I'm about a 3, Tom, Phil. Right. And Phil would go, that's great, Tommy. What got you that high? And then the Aussies would laugh. And then he'd go, seriously, what about what Adam said, don't you want? Don't you want more money? Don't you want more freedom? And I'd watch him just close people one after the other. And of course, after the first 6 sales, I was buying the courses directly. So I was buying them for like $200, and we were selling them for $2,000. Right. And I was getting $1,800.
Wow. Back then, a lot of
Back then's a lot of dough. It was like 90% profit to me. And as a wholesaler, once I'd done my first 6 sales, I qualified to buy the courses directly. Right. So, it was a license to print money. And by the time I was a year into it, I was making $300,000-$400,000 a year back then.
Back then, that's what year is that ish?
That'd be 30 years ago. So
that'd be how much now?
I have no idea with inflation, but it'd be close to $1 million, like.
Right, wow.
I was like doing really well. And so I ended up going over to America for the first time, because Phil said, look, if you sell X amount, you can come to this event we're running in Hilton Head in South Carolina, and one in Los Angeles. And he made a deal with me that he would personally pick me up in his brand new Jaguar Vanderplast, which is the extended Jaguar, top of the line, with the wooden fold down trays. Right. And he'd personally pick me up in Florida and drive me to his home in Canada, up the east coast of America. Wow. And that we'd smoke a cigar in the back seat. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, a cigar. And
I've made it.
And a Jag.
I've made it.
Yeah. And so I did it, and I actually won that. And we did it, and he did, true to his word, and he hired a driver to drive us. So we sat in the back, and we folded down the highly polished Jaguar tables and smoked the cigar, and it was beautiful. And yeah, that was my first sort of international experience. So, and that was my first successful business. And from there, I never looked back.
So how old were you now?
24.
At 24.
Yeah.
It's a lot of success really early for a relative. I mean, for me in the corporate world, it happened around about the same age, going the corporate route.
Yeah.
Right? And following the rules.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Thinking, cool, Tommy's done it. And I'm going, my wife, I met when I was about 25. I've got my white little Bertone body design MR2. I'm making more than my mates who were they were lawyers, or they're going to be doctors or whatever. And I'm already making twice what they're making. Amazing. And I'm traveling.
Amazing.
Right. And I'm thinking, yeah, baby, we're on the right trajectory here. So it's interesting how we went these different routes. Did you, at any point, prior to that, was there any sort of self-doubt, or did you feel you didn't fit because it's like, don't get a real job, mate? Was there any of that played on you at any time?
Not really. I mean, I knew I didn't fit in a job. The idea of a job for me was just like unthinkable. I couldn't imagine turning up somewhere from 9. I did it, and I would stand for hours.
And that was with Dad, right?
No, with Godfrey's and the
Godfrey's.
picture framing shop,
Right,
and
okay.
I'd stand there and I'd wait for a customer to come in, and I'd do what they needed me to do, sell a vacuum or sell a picture frame. But there was so much latent time, and
It's too slow.
and no opportunity to outperform. You know, like my boss, Brad, in the picture framing shop, he was a real estate guy, and he had, 4 or 5 other stores, and I was by far his best employee because I was the only one that was driven and was wanting to, like I was reading How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Right.
And I was the only one in the whole business, probably including him, that was reading the books and going to seminars. So, I had all the old ladies around Toombul and the northern suburbs of Brisbane would come in because Adam was so sweet and kind and nice, and I over-serviced them.
Right.
And Brad would come in and say, here's an extra $100. Or one day he invited me down to Hope Island where he lived and played around a golf with me, which opened my eyes to a world that I hadn't seen. And Brad was the first guy to actually give me any sort of financial recognition for performance. But yeah, I just knew it was not going to be I was not going to be employable.
Right.
Yeah.
There we go. Hence, and we'll go there later, but unemployable.
Yeah.
So you'd already convinced yourself, we already had the confidence, you were already succeeding. You thought, cool, I have this feeling of freedom. I can create my own path, it seems, at a pretty young age, and you were reading the books. So, you were kind of setting up the right program. Where was the drive coming from? You're learning how to do it, and you said, the latency of like a normal gig, too slow.
Yeah.
What does too slow mean? And where was the drive coming from?
I think when I traveled for the first time, that really put a firecracker under me because I saw the world, like when I was reading the books and I'd listen to Tony Robbins tapes, right? Tony Robbins released this set of tapes and young people are going, what's a tape? Not like a cassette tape with the little winders inside. Yeah. And I think it might have been Unlimited Power or Awaken the Giant Within, one of them. And I still remember it so well because I used to have this little Mini, and that was my first car. I bought it out of the Trading Post when I lived in Browns Plains, and I bought it for $800. Right. And I'd listened to Tony Robbins on repeat. And I remember driving along to my sales appointments with vacuum cleaners, and I was running pizzas for Domino's at night and different things. And I remember Tony going, I took off that day from my castle in Del Mar, California in my helicopter, going to an event that I was speaking at. And then I looked down out of my helicopter and I saw the traffic was all jammed up on the 405. And this all sounded so cool to me as an Australian kid. The 405 freeway, we didn't even say the word freeway, we said highway or whatever. All this American like really got my juices flowing. And then I realized that traffic jam was people trying to get to my event. And I was like, oh my God, this is wild, right? And when I went to America and I went to my first event, and the first time I actually did any public speaking was Phil, because I became this little room that started in Brisbane with 10 people turning up from the Quest newspapers, I became the maybe 5th most successful distributor out of 35,000 globally out of Australia. So Australia became this new hotbed for the Americans. They'd never had any business in Australia really until I came along. Right. And this kid just kept bringing more and more and more people. And my people that would sign up, of course, I would help them get their first 6 customers because I was paid. I got the money on those first 6 customers, and then they had to support their sales team, and that's how the business grew. Right. But in the end, it was like 500 people every 2 weeks turning up at the Hilton in Brisbane, and it grew into this multi-million-dollar business. And I was selling the next programs up, which was the $8,000 course that happened in America. And so, of course, the people that started making money with me, the next thing was to buy the $8,000 program. The first 6 sales would go to Phil that I'd make. So he'd get 6 times 8, which is $48,000. Yep. And then I would have 6 guys there to help them get their 6. So I would get 48 off each of them. Right. And so, so I feel when I went over to the States for the first time, I was in Long Beach, California at the Hilton Hotel. And I didn't realize that I was making waves in the US organization at all.
Yeah.
I was just this kid that was making 300-400 grand a year now, excited out of my brains with a bad fitting suit, right, that I bought from Roger David because it was my first,
Right.
business meeting. You'd hit
A bit of thunder coming in.
Bit of thunder.
Here's the message from God.
Yeah. And so they put me in front of a group. They said, Phil said, Adam, tell them your story. And I was like, okay. And I was overwhelmed by the moment. And I actually started to cry just from the emotion of it, because it hit me. Like, here I am in Hilton, Long Beach, California, in front of a crowd of, 400 or 500 Americans telling them my story. And they were just like, how much is this kid making? 400 grand a year, and he's what, 24?
Right. And what year are we now?
This would be 25 years ago.
25 years ago. So that was, in today's
This is
terms,
2000. 99, 2000.
2000.
Year 2000, something like that.
So,
Right,
big
yeah.
bucks. You're over $1 million.
Big
effectively
dollars.
today.
Big dollars, yeah. And I remember, I still remember this. We went out to dinner, and the founder of the company, a guy called Leslie Feger, and all the senior guys who I'd seen on the videos, and their videos were amazing. And these guys were like rock stars, and they were all 20 years older than me. And we went out to dinner that night, and I remember picking up the tab, and it was $8,000 for dinner for like 6 of us. And I was like,
Back then.
where did all that go? How much did they eat? And then I looked at the bill, and it was the wine, right? The wine, like $600-700 US a bottle. Right. And they did not let up. They had gave a good nudge. And I said, I'll pick it up, because thought I was such a baller. Yeah. And yeah, and I had a Diners Club card. Right. And I just spent a stupid amount of money. So I became a millionaire, but I don't know, I say I lost it all. I didn't lose it. I know where it went. Just went to stupid shit. I didn't buy any assets or anything. Right. But it was an amazing time in my life. And that's where I started. And I remember, as I said, just getting back to that moment where I spoke in front of the crowd, the moment got the better of me, and I sort of choked up for a minute. And the Americans like, that kid's all heart, And I was like, and after that, they got me back to speak and here and there. And my star was sort of on the ascent. And then, and then a few years later, there was internal fighting at the company, and then I broke away and did my own thing, which was a version of that. Right. And I ran my own events and did my own courses, and that sort of set me on that trajectory. Right.
So what about leading up to that? Where were if you need to move for rain, let me know.
We're okay. Yeah. We're okay at the moment.
It create a nice little atmosphere. Where were there any failures up until that point of note?
Yeah, I mean,
or maybe in the personal life.
Well, yeah, I mean, my marriage fell apart during that time.
Yeah.
I mean, all of this, me going from a picture framer to a bit of a star in that business, was a transformative time for me, right? And my wife wasn't really on that. She came and she gave it her best, and she was a great person and everything, but it wasn't really her thing, right? She didn't come from that background. She wasn't reading the books like I was.
Does it feel like a bit of a buzzkill kind of thing, or was it just growing? You were just growing, developing, and she was staying a bit more.
She was a lovely girl, and she was a lovely girl, but she came from a traditional family, same as me. Right. But because I was reading, realistically, maybe 2 books a month. Yeah. I'm reading 2 personal growth books a month. I'm into the materials. I'm the one running the ads, talking to the people, making the sales, seeing the money come in. Yeah. It was all happening for me, and she didn't have any goals or plans or. Right. And so just sort of, if couples don't learn together, they don't stay together, Yeah. But those who grow together, stay together, sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah. And so, but I did have failures. Like prior to that, one of my first businesses I tried was a resume writing business, because I went to get this job, I think it might have been the picture framing shop or Godfrey's, and they did a resume. So I looked in the Courier Mail, and there was a section where these little line ads, and they used to charge by the centimetre back in those days. Right. And there was like 3 resume companies, but one guy had this big ad. And I remember thinking, man, that ad's got to be like $800 a week to put that in, which back then just seemed like such an amount of money. Yeah, yeah. So I went to his house. Interestingly, I drove past it about 3 weeks ago when I was back in Australia. By accident, went, oh my God, that's the house. And I hadn't seen it in all that time. But he was running a business writing resumes, and I think it was about $800 to get a resume written. Right. And when I got there, there was 4 or 5 of us lined up waiting for our interview with the guy to consider writing our resume for us. Yeah. So they had us banked up in the waiting room, pitched us one after another. And then he had 4 girls. It was an old Queenslander that was all beautifully renovated. He was probably in his 40s and obviously running a very successful business. And I went, this fucking guy's making bank here. Like he's got 4 times 800, 800, 800. And I'm like, and I was only there for an hour. This is happening all week. And so I thought, I'm going to start a resume writing business. Right. And so I went out and bought Corel Draw and
Oh my God.
decided. And then I put my own ad as big as his in the paper, and I went and leased a new Magna, because I was going to do
oh my God, Mitsubishi Magna.
A Mitsubishi Magna. I went and took out a loan, $18,000, a Verada. It was a top of the line. There was a Verada.
Right, fully optioned.
And I took out a loan based on my, had the velour interior.
Right, oh yeah.
And because I couldn't afford an office, but I could afford the lease payment on a Mitsubishi Verada, so they're only a good one. And I turned up to church on the weekend, and all the young guys were like, "Oh my God, Adam's got like a grown-up's car," because they all wanted Tiranas, and I had this dark blue. Yeah, it wasn't brand new, but it was close to new, and a car dealer dodged up the
a bit of
finance. The finance to help me get it, But then I started doing that, but it didn't fail because my marketing didn't work. Like I put the ads in the paper and I got the calls, but I just realized one day I got a phone call and this woman was going for a job as like second in charge at Australia Post.
Right.
And I went to her house and sold her on writing her resume. And I'm like 22 years old, no clue on like how to do shit. There was no ChatGPT to cheat.
Yeah.
I actually had to write this stuff, and it was just me and this girl that I hired, this 18-year-old junior that was working out of my spare bedroom in the Browns Plains. And it failed because I just got overwhelmed by it. I can't do this.
Right.
Whereas this guy was 40 and, articulate, and I was just this bogan from Browns Plains that wanted to make money.
Right.
Totally unqualified.
And what about where was relationship with mum and dad playing at this time? You were kind of like, they'd empty nested, you were successfully launched, I guess.
Yeah.
But then you were having perhaps some challenges with your relationship, and then you had the religious influence. Where was that kind of playing as you were having this great success, in entrepreneurial world?
Yeah, I think early on my mum was quite sad but also angry that I left the church, because I left the church about 21, just as all this started to happen.
Yeah.
And because I was reading Tony Robbins and reading personal growth books and starting to ask questions like, what kind of God gives you the options of do it my way or burn forever in a hell of fire?
Right.
What kind of dude is that? I don't think I want to be friends with him no matter what. He sounds like a dick. Hey, I'm your friend, but if I'm not. And I asked Mum these hard questions, and she goes, look, Ad, as she called me Addie, she goes, Addie, I don't know the answer to some of these things, but I do know that he's a kind God, and she did her best.
Right.
But she was angry at the church because she knew that what happened was she went back to Canberra, and the church in Canberra was run by good people, and the church in Brisbane was run by some bad people. Mm-hmm. And I was part of that fellowship, they called it. Right. And that Brisbane fellowship was falling apart at the seams. Right. And a lot of the guys in this particular Pentecostal sect, I'll call it, were ex-military. And so they were very militant, self-righteous. And I look back on it now, and they were not good men, Right. So she was angry at the church, and she was sad that I'd fallen away, is what they called it in the church. But ultimately,
because why? Because what it had done for her, or because you'd left? But was she wishing the best for you, and you'll only be happy if you are following the rules of the religion?
She never made me feel like I was out of the family or anything. She was just sad that I'd given up on my relationship with God, to her. So, but she didn't pass away with any of that still intact.
Right. No judgment there.
No, we were super close, and she would, she was.
It's only one of the best for you. And
totally.
That was part of it.
It was just heartbreaking at the time it happened, but she didn't pass away for another decade after that or something like that.
How about Dad? Was he judgmental about?
No, look, Dad, not really.
Not really?
No, Dad was like, it's a shame you've fallen away or whatever, but he just got on with things. He was not so bad. But for Mum, I think she took it a bit harder.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to ask you a probably chronologically relevant question. Interesting, the last couple of episodes of Unemployable, and you and Mark have been sort of going at it. I mean, I looked at that, and as I said to you the other day, and I thought, hey, come into a Mediterranean family if you want to really see a duel.
Yes,
right?
yes.
You guys held the line pretty well, I think, professionally, and managed to switch gears beautifully into the rest of that, the second podcast around where this issue came up again, and Mark wanted to kind of put it to bed. I mean, how much would you say around this whole burqa type, and I think the burqa thing is just symbolic of something bigger, right? But how much of that's connected to the fact that you did feel constrained and it just didn't feel right for you with religion at a young age? Was there much of a connection there that kind of followed you up, you think?
Yeah, look, I think partly people think, because I've spoken out against Islam,
Right.
that I'm anti-Muslim. I'm not anti-Muslim. I'm anti all religions, pretty much.
Right. Yeah.
Period.
Similar.
I think all religions have been gaslighting humanity into saying we can get away with things that are inhumane because God,
Right.
and they elevate.
You get
this.
get out of jail card.
It's like a get out of jail card
Right.
that enables them to pass otherwise extremely morally ambiguous things, right? Like, killing and control and all these horrible things. I think with the burqa, it's probably mostly rooted in probably two things. One, the oppression of women. So I grew up where my mum, my favorite band in the world is the Dave Matthews Band, and there's one song he sings called Grey Street.
Right.
And he talks about all the colours blending together to grey. And this particular, the person he's writing about is a woman who has all this colour in her heart, but somehow it all just blended together in the end into grey. And it reminded me sadly of my mum, because, and I don't want this to sound bad towards my dad, but he just managed to draw the joy out of mum. Mum wanted to have people over to the house and but my dad always sort of clamped down on that and killed her spirit, I watched her spirit just get crushed, and I hate seeing that when, and it can happen with a woman doing it to a man.
Yeah.
And it can happen with a man doing it to a woman. It can happen with a parent doing it to a child.
Yeah. A human doing it to a human.
Yeah, where they're toxic, power,
Right.
whatever it is.
Having dominion over.
Yeah, it's reducing somebody to make themselves feel better. And it just it really riles me up when I see
the
that.
man or the woman.
Yeah, they get off, on, so it really is very deep for me.
Right.
And so when I look at the burqa specifically, and its sole purpose is to
Oppress, control.
Reduce a woman's beauty, hide her beauty,
her dignity.
Because if you don't, and a man looks at you, or a man does something to you, or rapes you, or whatever, then it's your fault. And you see these women down at the beach in Australia in their burqas, and several of them have drowned.
Right.
In the surf in a burqa. To me it's actually inhumane.
Right.
And I love Australia.
Yeah.
And I think Australians need to make a stand for what it means to be Australian.
Yeah.
And I think the 20 plus countries that have banned it on the grounds of, it's inhumane.
Yeah.
And this is where Mark and I sort of got into a bit of a thing when I said, there's other things we have laws for. And I said, well, there's lots of things we have laws for: stealing, raping, these are all illegal. And when I said, why isn't the burqa any different to that? And he said, well, it's not against the law. I said, well, that's my point. That's why laws exist. Yeah. So I think these types of things, it comes from a combination of that kind of experience in my personal family life, and also my own upbringing in a church, which I grew up believing I was going to burn in hell, because when I looked at a girl when I was 14 years old and my mate showed me a Playboy, I was like responding to that. I'm like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
Being a woman, right?
Yeah.
And my mates would just go out and they had no guilt, no nothing. They were just boys, right? Whereas I was dealing with trauma. Like I honestly thought,
Because you'd seen this picture.
because I'd seen this picture and thought about it afterwards and done the things that little boys do when they see these things.
Right.
And I honestly carried this guilt that I was going to go to hell and this genuine fear every Sunday when I was sitting in the church for hearing the pastor preach about lasciviousness and, all this and like, and I carried this as a child, this fear, this genuine fear that if God, because it was one of those churches that God was going to come back at any moment, and that if you weren't right with God at that moment, and I'm a 14-year-old boy thinking about naked women every day.
All right.
I'm going to die. I'm screwed
Stop
here.
thinking. Stop thinking. Stop thinking about it. Stop thinking about it. Right.
So when I grew up and understood these things and realized, hey, look, I married the first girl that smiled back at me.
Right.
And I didn't get to experience all these things that my friends. Now, on balance, there were pluses. Like I was busy building a business in my early 20s while my mates were out doing whatever.
Committed, focused.
Yeah, my
executing
buddies were
on-
out there just smashing it out, right?
Committed and focused. Other things.
But yeah, I was committed and focused. So there's definitely trade-offs, right? And I get all that, but I still also, but I think back like when we had a pre-marriage interview, and the pastor, I won't say his name, but he literally said, "So tell me exactly what you two have done up until now, and I need details." Like, ooh, like I was 18 or 19.
Right.
Having this discussion. He wanted the details of now we did wait till our marriage night to have sex.
Consummate. But,
Yeah, oral sex or the other.
Right.
Or actual penetration. But everything else that you do, the petting and the whatever else you do, he wanted the details of all of that. And he asked that about, and I look back at it now and I'm like, dude, you're a bit messed up. You
For the job, or was
this for your wank bank?
Yeah,
right?
for the wank bank, basically.
And so I have this issue with churches because I now understand that they're power structures. And it's taken me a while to come back around to sort of just being able to really separate a relationship with God from a church. Mm-hmm. And my days of churches are definitely over. My days of God are actually growing.
After the Charlie Kirk assassination,
Yes.
a lot of people have kind of reconsidered. Big Chocky was talking about it just the other day on the podcast. He interviewed him, that he'd gone for the first time, bought a Bible or whatever. Did that happen to you as well?
It did. Actually, you were with me through quite a powerful experience that we both shared in London.
Yeah.
And what, for the viewers who don't know what we're talking about, Tommy and I, on this podcast, we had Tommy Robinson on.
Yeah.
And we're fortunate to have Tommy on the pod. And then Tommy afterwards invited us to his rally in London, which was the largest street demonstration in European history, which is saying something, right? European history, not just British history, all of Europe. And Europe's had a lot of unrest over the years. Mm-hmm. So estimates were between 1 and 3 million people were on the streets that day. You and I,
and Perry.
Yep. We were in the media pit with about 100 other people in the media pit, and then 1 million people from around the world. Yeah. It was wild.
Yeah.
But I was very emotional that day, and you filmed that clip of me with the veteran.
Yeah, I was doing the behind the scenes capture.
Yeah, you did it with the iPhone, I think. That clip.
With the iPhone.
And
Perry actually turned it off, and I thought, no let's
film
get it
this.
on. This is really what's happening.
And that clip went to 4 million views. Jerry Seinfeld's wife actually reached out to me from New York, having watched that clip.
Wow.
Just a couple of months ago. So it reached a lot of people. But when I was there that day, they had the Christian band on stage, which brought up a lot of stuff from my past. You could feel this passion, but I felt the presence of I don't know how to say this, but
something bigger was there.
yes, I felt that there is a spiritual battle happening here.
Yeah.
I'm choosing my words very carefully.
Getting goosebumps.
Yeah, but you were there.
Yeah.
And the rain was coming down.
Yep.
And there's 1 million people in the rain and people holding up the Charlie Kirk sign, like the photo of Charlie Kirk in a picture frame. And I'm looking up.
Yeah, I remember.
And there's as far as I can see, and the Christian, and then that Christian preacher, not the guy from New Zealand, but the guy that wore he was a bit much. That to me felt
the flag
totally
tearing and all that.
That was just all for clickbait.
Yeah.
But the other guy that wore the black robe. Like he looked like a
Oh, yep. He started
friar.
getting very fire and brimstone-y.
Yeah, but his speech was amazing. It was, but anyway. And what I really thought about here is that, or felt, was that we're in a spiritual war right now.
Yep.
Between good and evil.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that the Muslim side is the evil side.
Yep.
But I am saying there's definitely there is room still within their unreformed text for heinous things to happen.
Yeah. Yep.
So there's no provision anymore within the Bible.
Yeah.
There's no extreme Christian,
Yeah.
right, that believes in killing in the name of God, right?
Right.
And most Muslims don't believe in killing in the name of God.
Yeah. Yeah.
But within their book, there is provision still.
Right.
And the problem is that the mostly moderate Muslims don't speak up against it, because if they do, in that same book says that they are then
That's it.
on
You're
the
out.
chopping block.
You're
Not out.
excommunicated.
You're up for death.
Wow.
Like it's something like, I don't remember. Look, correct me. People put it in the comments.
Yeah.
But I think it's something like, it's either 25 or 75. It's that much. It's one of those two numbers.
Yeah.
25% or 75% of Muslims believe that death
Yeah.
is an appropriate punishment for leaving the faith. It's wild.
That's interesting though, but isn't it at the same time, if you do, or is it if you die for some, what they would consider honourable cause, that sometimes gets called terrorism perhaps, that you will then have, you know, all the seven virgins and whatever else type thing and die for...
The extreme interpretations of these things. Yeah, I think it's Sam Harris says it, he calls it the dark pearl in the text, which is this dark piece of text, which if taken literally is really bad. You know, it's really, it is evil.
Take it literally.
Stoning people to death and killing and murdering. And when I was in Boracay recently and spoke to a devout Muslim from the UAE, I had this discussion and I opened up, because I've got a copy of the most heinous texts from the Quran in my phone.
Right.
And I said, explain this to me then.
Yeah.
And he said, well, actually, as a moderate Muslim, this is how we interpret that. Yeah. And this was for that time and then only, not for today. Right. All right. And so here's a devout Muslim that does not believe in any of that extreme stuff. Yeah. But unfortunately, and I'm seeing it, you only have to go online and look at it, that these minority of evil men, and they are men, that are trying to infiltrate Western civilization, and they've realized that they can do it by taking advantage of democracy and by breeding. And so they have loads of kids, they get themselves voted into power, and then once they're in power in a democratic society, the only solution then is a violent resolution. Right? It's only when what we're seeing in the UK, I showed you yesterday, they're turning cars over in the UK and setting things on fire.
I just saw some stuff around Bulgaria just recently too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the only way. I mean, violence, sadly, is the only solution.
If that's all you're left with.
And today, Australians have become so passive and complacent and compliant that, and they're like, she'll be right, mate, which has been our charm and our culture, is actually our liability now.
Welcoming.
Yeah, well, it's actually a liability now.
Yeah.
And when I was with you and we were stopping people in the streets, and these were not far-right crazies, we're talking mums and grandmas that are walking on the street and say, why are you here today? And they'd say, I want my grandkids to see this, and that their nan marched to speak up for Britain and to speak up for our country and our values. And I said, what would you say to Australia, who's probably 10 years, 15 years behind the UK? They'd say, please take action much sooner than we did, because we've lost our country. And it's super evident now. It's everywhere in the UK. You're seeing, you know, like we saw that situation just recently where a girl was raped by an immigrant, and she went to jail for calling him a bad name. And he got let off on mental health grounds, saying, I didn't realize the cultural difference. So the rapist is free, and she's in jail because she breached free speech, anti-hate speech laws.
Whereas he potentially did something which is a lot more heinous.
Not potentially, he did it. He did it.
Sticks and stones will break my name.
Yeah.
Was it? But
names will never hurt me. But
not
they
in
do.
this case. Not in this case.
So I'm very passionate about this because, you know, if you look at Australia, and I'm also passionate about Australians stop damn well apologising for
Being Australian
being Australian.
and your values that you represent in this country.
And stop this call to country where your children are being told to apologise and reminded of the fact this is not your land.
Yeah.
But if you really want to have that argument, go back in time and look at Indigenous culture. There was battles between one tribe and another tribe, and one tribe prevailed.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, where a child is born is not his or her choice.
Yeah.
Where they are born is where they were born in that time and place. If you were born in Australia at that time and place, you are an Australian in my mind, and you have just as much right to that land as an Indigenous person who was born into the country years ago.
Yep.
But we are told to apologise, it's not your land. But they always come from a country where, if it's so great where they are, why are they leaving, right? Why are they trying to change our country to their country? Our country's great. Australia's amazing, but it's becoming less and less amazing. And the other real bugbear for me is this immigration issue, because the government, this is the biggest gaslighting of all time. Mm-hmm. I had a federal sitting Liberal politician in our podcast just a few weeks ago.
Yep.
And I said, what are your thoughts on immigration and the housing crisis? Surely you must agree that a major driver of our housing crisis is 500,000 new people arriving every 12 months. Well, it's an input. And I'm like, wait, what? Well, it's an input. There's many other factors. And I'm like, that's gaslighting, bro. Like, you can't tell me that half of Adelaide arrives every year, and that's not going to cause a housing shortage.
500,000.
Supply and demand. Real estate is a supply and demand asset.
Yeah.
If you add 500,000 people to the demand side, that it's not a input, it is driving it.
You think there are other forces at play?
I think, the other thing that they say, and Australians just seem to accept, they say, well, if we didn't have the immigrants, the country would collapse. And I watch people go, okay, well, that sounds right, because who would do all those jobs? Well, all those jobs were done before they started doing this.
Well, in the 50s, as part of the immigrants that came through, right? It was the same deal. The Greeks and the Italians came over. They took the fish and chip shops and all the shitty jobs. And we got along with similar values.
Well, they're Christian.
Yeah.
The Greeks and the Italians are Christian as well. They got that shared moral, the 10 Commandments: don't steal, don't rape, don't do shit like that.
Basically the same values within that structure.
Yeah, family oriented and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And then fundamentally accepting.
Yep.
Whereas with many people in the Muslim side believe that there is only Allah and there is only the Muslim religion, and all else is just not to be tolerated. Now, it's not everywhere. You go to Dubai and you go to the Middle East, they do have Christian churches being built, and they allow coexistence, but in the extreme expression, it's not, right? I've looked at it, and I just think Australia is it's not on a good trajectory. And to your question, is it planned? It has to be.
Yeah.
There's something at play here, because they say, like the country would collapse because who's going to build all the houses? We do need people to build the houses, but we need the houses for the fucking people they're bringing in. Right. For the stop bringing the people, don't need the houses. Right. So we've got this sort of argument all the time, and they just I think they're gaslighting the Australian public big time on those two fronts, and this use of the term racist. You're a racist, you're a bigot, you're a this, you're a that, and it's like, bro, common sense isn't racism.
Yeah.
And I've
thinking,
got
asking questions,
critical thinking.
Critical thinking.
Like I say, we got heaps of Indians in Australia, right?
Yep.
I don't dislike Indians.
No.
They're family people. They're hardworking people. They're business people.
Yep.
I don't dislike Indians. They're peaceful. Mostly, just like Australians, mostly peaceful. There's some Aussie assholes, Indian assholes, but they're not particularly a bad race of people at all.
If anything, they've had some issues with us in the past.
Yeah. There's just too many. There's just too many people coming. It's not that I hate Indians. We've got heaps of Brazilians in Australia. I love Brazilians.
Yeah.
They're mostly hardworking. They're funny. They're good time. But there's a point where we go, look, we just need to cut it off for a minute. Right. Because young people can't afford a house anymore, not even close.
So we're multiplying it, I think Mark brought it up, or the crew did, 1.3, 1.4, and most of the Western world is not recovering on population. And so they look at maybe the numbers too and go, holy shit, we keep this up, our economy is going to crash.
Yep.
right? We've got too big a machine. It's getting too big in the overhead side to now where we haven't got enough energy and input and value. But then again, we've also got everything that's going to be happening with AI and so on. Won't go into that now. But getting back, sort of bringing this round full circle, we started at the burqa and what that stood for. And to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like really it's these oppression, control structures, and these power structures, perhaps they've been corrupted somewhat, right? Be it government, be it religion, right? All these things that are used for controlling, getting everybody to behave in a certain way.
I despise that stuff.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's in my that's where you and I connect is in my Instagram bio, I put freedom maximalist,
right,
Bitcoiner.
Right.
I don't trust governments anymore. After COVID, I don't trust Liberal or Labor.
Yep.
I don't actually trust any of them.
Yeah.
Because I think absolute power corrupts absolutely. You look at the incentives.
Yeah.
But and I guess at the end of the day, human nature, it's very rare that a truly ambivalent, humane person wields great power.
Yeah.
So and at the moment I've got friends who are, a particular couple, she served 30 years at the federal level as a politician, sitting member.
Yep.
And they just said, that I asked them the question point blank. You were there, didn't I?
They've been inside. They're inside.
As close as it gets.
That's as close as it gets. They see everything.
And I said, are you telling me that, because I said this immigration thing, right? Like, are they bringing people in for votes, right? And absolutely, absolutely, it's been brought in for votes.
All the welfare from the government. It's okay. Sit back, watch Netflix, sit back on the lounge and watch TV, kind of.
Yeah.
Like, eat your Cheetos and.
But bring them in so that you stay in power. And I'm like, so they're selling our national identity, the Australian culture, everything that makes up Australia, diluting it. Diluting our money by printing away to nothing. And then they're diluting away our culture to stay in power. Right? And when you really think about that, that when you think back of growing up in Australia and you think about like what it meant to be Australians, and as I think it was, I think it might have been Andy Shumlow who we had on our pod, who's a South African intellectual, really, really vocal guy, very smart. And he said, in his opinion, when Australians are at their best, nobody in the world beats them. And this is coming from a South African who's done a lot politically in Australia. He said, Australians at their best are the best people in the world. And I tend to agree with that. Back when mateship and all this, but the country's changing and they're struggling to get people to join the army because none of those young people can afford a house anymore. And Lee Kuan Yew, who built Singapore, and you spent a lot of time, one of the greatest leaders of all time, incredible leader. And he said, Australia's problem, he called it years ago, he said, if your young people don't have a stake in the country through home ownership, you're going to struggle to get them in the military. Because they don't have any sense of ownership.
There's nothing to protect.
There's nothing to protect. They don't feel connected to the country. And they're just going to leave. And these politicians just come up with new ways to tax anybody that has a go. So a lot of my friends are just leaving. And because they don't want to have the political fight because it's so corrupt. And you see these things like this Bureau of Meteorology website costing $93,000, and you see this digital ID ban that came out.
Million? I think it was million. It was ridiculous.
$93 million. The Bureau, and it came out. I think you might have sent me the reel, or it's an advertising executive and somebody else that's behind the digital ID platform. And it's just all this insider corruption, and in the end, it's just what's being lost is our kids' futures. Where every dollar they print to give to some blue-haired lefty idiot about some stupid idea that they've got is just your kid's future. It's the debt that's being printed into the oblivion. And people just don't connect that they're selling the future economic energy of the country, which is literally the life of future Australians. Literally their time and energy are going to go into paying taxes to pay off bad decisions that they're making today.
We're kicking the can down the road. And I think there's too much self-interest, unfortunately, at the within the government layer. It's got a little lazy. But I've seen it. I've got like 8 or so people. It's growing, and they happen to be primarily of like Greek heritage, looking to, repatriate,
Yeah,
making their moves back to, and then looking at Cyprus and so on, right? So, and it's interesting. Every one of them so far, 90% coming out of Melbourne, which was hit the hardest.
with COVID.
The soul was ripped out of that poor state, right? And they've got a huge financial issue
They're the most indebted state in the world.
in the world.
In the world.
Right.
The most indebted state of any country in anywhere on the planet Earth is Victoria.
Was the most lockdown state in the world.
These idiots like Dan Andrews and Jacinta Allen, these complete morons,
Yeah.
have bankrupted basically the state of Victoria.
Yeah.
And who pays for it?
Yeah.
The taxpayer.
Yeah.
And this is the point, Tommy, like you use the phrase, kick the can down the road. I want listeners to understand that that's a turn of phrase. What it actually is an average Aussie getting a bill in the mailbox for an additional tax, which to pay means mum or dad not being home with their kids because they're out earning money to pay that tax.
I don't know how kids are brought up in this, not this country. We're in beautiful Bali right now, but in Australia, I mean, our kid was brought up and born in Singapore, and we had a helper. And even then, and we had 2 careers. I don't know how families do it, let alone one, more kids. I know my sister, she's got like 4, right? And she's more of a stay-home mum. So my brother-in-law's carrying the biggest chunk of that burden easily. But like, I don't know how they do it. Like, it's so fucking hard.
Yeah.
It was hard enough for me, you know?
I saw it. I mean, today I don't know how families are doing. I just saw the ABC put a thing out. I'll show you on the phone, but it's filming. But I think it showed what the average, what household income you need to rent a house in Darwin, Brisbane, all of them now are over $100,000 a year that you have to have coming into the home just to rent a home in Australia. And there was another research out recently, and it was basically this report that this guy did out of the States, and it'd be similar here, that what they define as the poverty line was set in 1960, and it was 3 times groceries or something. It was but so many economic assumptions and decisions are made on these kind of like stake in the ground assumptions, and the poverty line is one of those critical stakes. So he went and did the math, and it works out that the new poverty line, and we spoke about this on our podcast, is something like $160,000 a year now is the poverty line. just to put kids in schools and feed them, and it's just wild.
Right.
And that's the world we're moving into because of irresponsible money printing. Politicians can't resist just printing away our kids' futures, literally taxing them to death.
Right. I think Maddie Cameron put that post up in the last week. That $4 million or $5 million it costs to just to be able to live there as a basic family unit and educate.
Because people don't think about that. They think about, okay, mum and dad die. Kids go through school, weddings, you know, and it does. It works out to millions of dollars over time. And that's why, you know, I've seen my 2 brothers both in business and done fairly well. They never had any money. They've been able to get a house, and they got the house, you know, put some money under them. But that's just relative wealth that when they sell the house, they just get another one of the same standard. And they're not like rock star mansions or anything.
Right.
But because they have kids, they're just constantly like behind the 8 ball, just feeding them, clothing them, schooling them, excursioning them, fines, taxes,
daycare,
daycare. Right. It's just, and that's what's gone. That's what's being lost. And then you layer onto that the 500,000 new people coming in, which is just driving the prices up. Australians just, you know.
So, a big question for you then. Have you ever thought of going into politics?
Oh, very briefly, but no.
Right.
Yeah. I thought about it when I was in London. I thought, oh, maybe should I do this? Because I felt something, right? Not towards politician, being a politician, but just I felt like this sense of like unification of the people on the street. Wouldn't it be amazing to actually be involved in? Now, Tommy's not a politician. He's an influencer, really. He's a content creator.
Right.
And people are going to have their opinion. He's a shill.
With a cause, we'd like to think.
With a cause.
And
people are going to have their opinions, whatever else. But at the end of the day, there's something about that. But But in Australia, I would never be a politician, and I know that there are good people in politics in Australia.
Yep.
And
They stand out these days.
see people saying every politician's a complete scumbag. Well, I wouldn't agree. Like I look at
that's true.
Gerard Rennick. I've interviewed him.
Yep.
He's like a thoroughly decent person.
Yep.
He's not a Bitcoiner. He should be. For a smart guy. That's one thing he's gotten wrong. But he's much smarter than me on pretty much everything else.
Right, okay.
And I think he's a very decent person. I think Pauline
Hanson.
I think her heart is for Australia.
Yep.
Whether she's somebody that you would be close friends with personally or not, I like her and I think she's great.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of younger people coming up through the ranks in
You have
Australia.
the guy in Adelaide.
Yeah.
What's his name? I've forgotten.
Can't think of his name.
He's really senator. Yeah.
But the incentives, when you think about it, of being a politician in Australia, especially a straight politician,
Right.
if you want to be crooked, maybe, but if you actually want to play it straight and actually do good,
Yep.
the incentives are pretty bad
Right.
because Australians have no respect
Yeah.
for politicians.
Yeah.
And Australians are also like are super aggressive. Like
Tall poppy thing doesn't help either, right?
Oh,
you can't
mate,
be successful. You must be shonky if you're successful.
I'm not a politician, and the shit people say to me in my Instagram and in with socials is brutal.
Yeah.
Like brutal.
Yeah.
They just want to fight you and insult you, and politicians turn up by 100. You know.
Yeah.
And for what?
Yeah.
You know, for what?
For what?
And when you get there, do you really like?
System's bigger than the politicians at the moment. I think
Right.
that's the challenge.
There's so many people in the system that are just embedded and paid.
Or the deep state, as they
The
call
deep
it.
state, 100%.
Yeah.
100. These backroom deals.
Yeah.
That they have the chat with you at a certain point and say, "This is how it is, champ."
Yep.
You want to go, and this is why a lot of these great people like Gerard Rennick. Like you look at Gerard, in my opinion, you put him next to someone like Peter Dutton, right?
Right.
I mean, it's not even a contest
No.
in terms of intellect.
The guy's like, he's articulate. The information he can pour out.
And what happened to Gerard Rennick?
Right.
They booted him.
Yeah.
Why? Because he wouldn't sell out.
Yeah.
He was like, no.
No.
And as a result, he became independent. And where did he end up? Nowhere.
Do you think that happened to Malcolm? He had 2 cracks at it.
Malcolm Turnbull. I don't know. I don't know enough about Malcolm.
Right.
I know he's a successful businessman, but
Yeah.
I didn't really get politically interested until post-COVID.
Right. Okay.
So I don't know, but that's why good people don't rise to the top in Australian politics, because the really good ones tell the powers to be, get fucked.
Right.
And then they don't go anywhere. That's it.
They get stunted out.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately how it is. In America, they just shoot them.
Yeah.
Like
right.
JFK,
They try.
Charlie Kirk.
Kirk.
Just shoot them before they get the power. And if they do
President,
get the power, then just shoot them.
Yep.
You know, and
Tried with Trump twice.
they've tried it with Trump. Unfortunately, I think in Australia, I don't see it until and it's evil.
Yep.
It is evil.
Yep.
And, there's things that need to be said and done that are just not being done. The unions have bankrupting the Australian people with overruns on these public works projects.
Yep.
Where does that money come from?
Right.
And they gaslight the Australian public. We're the working class reps. I'm like, no, mate, you're actually bankrupting.
Yep.
Everybody is not in the trade business.
Yep.
It's all their kids that are not in trades, the nurses, the doctors, that are all paying for that.
Well, and the big tech, I think I saw a stat today that Australia had the 3rd biggest percentage of population, so per capita, of millionaires plus in the world. But I think it also has at the moment the biggest leakage percentage of millionaires leaving, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, leaving Australia as well right now, which are the biggest chunk of the taxpayers, right? Because of the way that the tax system is set up. So it's going to be very interesting. So I didn't want to sort of make this a political sort of podcast because you guys covered enough of that in obviously an Unemployable already. But I can see it fires a real passion up in you, and if we circle back to you having that success as a young guy and, you'd split from your marriage, then came, I guess, perhaps your biggest, and whatever your biggest failures were along the way too, but reliable education was a real break-free moment for you, perhaps, financially. So how did it come about? And where were some of the challenges that were along the way? Because at the moment, this sounds like potentially it's like an amazing story. Only the immaculate conception of someone like an Adam Hudson could be so successful. how can I be successful? What did he go through internally, and the challenges you had internally, and what kept you going? To see if people can identify that in themselves as well, as they're questioning themselves and whether they should be an employee or unemployable.
I'm a product of just not quitting. Like, I don't think I'm super smart. In fact, I know I'm not super smart. Like, I look at super smart entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Like, I look at a guy like Elon Musk, right? Elon is super smart, and you look at those there's a lot of Aussies success stories, that are just really bright.
Yeah.
Technically, came from great families, or they're just really, really savvy people.
Yeah.
I came from just personal development books and Tony Robbins seminars.
Right.
So I was just this blunt instrument that kept trying little businesses.
Consuming this good information.
Yeah, I didn't have any mentor, so to speak, other than what I could get from books and seminars.
Yeah.
And I made a lot of stupid mistakes, but I just kept going, kept failing. And I failed way, way more. Like, I had that fast start.
Right. Okay, that's important.
Yeah, I failed way more. Like, ultimately, I left that.
But it didn't kill you, right?
It didn't kill me. It just made me better.
Right.
But I was just so determined to, make it, quote unquote, make it, because of, I think, my upbringing. Like, I grew up in I wasn't poor, but it was always very, very tight. And I saw the impact it had on mum, and I saw the impact it had on our family. It was always just this tension in the household, always around money.
Right.
And that's to take nothing away from Dad. Dad at one point had millions of dollars in the stock market just before the broke, but none of it flew through back to the family. It was always in the market.
Right.
And, and so I had lots and lots of failures. And I owned a hairdressing salon in Sydney. Most people don't know that. Yeah, in Neutral Bay, because I went to a Brad Sugars seminar and said, you can buy hairdressing salons for nothing when the owners want to retire.
Right.
Take them over, revamp them, and sell them for $100,000. I thought, right, I'm getting one. And I found one in Neutral Bay, Sydney. I acquired it for nothing, and it wasn't anywhere near what Brad Sugars told me it would be.
Right.
I remember one of the hairdressers was an alcoholic, and at the end of the day, come in the banking, it'd be in a little NAB banking bag ready to go with the cash.
Right.
And it'd just be torn open, and he'd just take out what he needed to go to the pub. Oh yeah, sorry mate, I took $50 out, and like this, just the shit that goes on with trying to managing hairdressers. And anyway, so I've done lots of things that failed, and eventually I had a company that got some level of success, which was raising capital for early stage investors.
Right.
Sorry, for early stage startups.
Right.
And I partnered with a guy much older than me. He was like late 50s and I was 30.
Yep.
And he could see that I had this marketing prowess. He had this piece of intellectual property about how to raise capital in Australia compliantly that really was quite genius. Yep. And so we started this business and we grew it, and then we took it public. And I had like $12 million worth of equity. It was only a very small public company, but I had $12 million worth of equity, but we listed just before 2008 crash.
Yeah.
And I had 3 investment properties, $12 million stake in the company. I thought, here we go. I'm like, I've made it. Yes. Right. 2008 happened.
Yeah.
At that time,
financial crisis.
Yeah. We had a CEO from Sydney running the business. I was out of the business.
Right.
And then she rang me and said, hey, Adam, can I have a meeting with you?
He was your GM or whatever. CEO, right.
Yeah, and went to the meeting and she goes, oh, look, can you guys, me and the co-founder, Tony, can you guys put some money into the bank? I'm like, why? Because I was making maybe $300,000 a month profit leading into the IPO. Right. It was actually a reverse listing, not an IPO, but technically the same thing. We're on the exchange. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, we're just in a bit of a cash squeeze. I'm like, well, how much money do we have? Well, I'm not sure. I said, well, you're the CEO.
Yeah.
How about we open it up right now?
Right.
We open up the internet banking. It's $3,000 in the bank.
Oh, shit.
I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah. Like, sure, it was not the what the hell.
We had, we had 30 something employees in an office in Bundall on the Gold Coast.
Right.
And $3,000 in the bank. And I was like, you're calling me now?
But the game's over?
We had no clue, right? So I called a mate of mine who was the financial controller for a public company on the Gold Coast. I said, Paul, can you meet me at the office tomorrow first thing? Right. I need you to come in and have a look where we're at here.
Yeah.
So he graciously came down and the CEO went back to Sydney, didn't want to show her face. By the end of the day, we'd established we owed $500,000 in bills. We had 27 employees expecting their salary. Let's say the average employee is on $2,000.
You're insolvent.
You're $60,000 a week overhead.
Right.
3,000 in the bank and 500,000 unpaid bills.
Right.
And so I called a meeting the next day with the staff and said, look, as you know, I'm the co-founder. We have to let a lot of you go right away. There's $3,000, and this Sydney CEO had hired in-house counsel. So we had a lawyer working for us,
Right.
who then called everybody into her office and said, nobody's leaving till you get your pay and all your entitlements. So I had this lefty lawyer.
Lawyer, right.
So I wrote out checks out of my own savings, redundancies to about everybody but 7 people. Right. So I went from 30 down to 7 in 24 hours. Jeez. And I sold my 3 investment properties. The stock had just tanked.
Right.
It was basically worthless. And
how old were you at this time?
early 30s.
Early 30s, yeah.
And I hadn't worked in the company for over a year. So I came back in.
Yep.
And behind the scenes started to run the business. And basically, my business partner and I put in the cash to pay the redundancies. And then we set about trying to save the company. And I worked for 2 years for free. And it pretty much drove me to the edge of bankruptcy. I got down myself to like $5,000 in the bank in my mid-30s.
Yeah.
But thankfully, after 2 years, we managed to turn it around till it was profitable again. And a high net worth guy came in and bought all of my shares. Mm-hmm. And that's when I had a few $100,000, enough to go to America.
Right.
Because at that point I was cooked in Australia. I was like, I'm done. I want to get out of here. And so I moved to America with my girlfriend at the time.
Why the move from Australia then?
I was so over Australia at that time. I was like, I need to get out. I need to change the scene.
Right.
I was so totally cooked. I was so fortunate that somebody bought out my stake in the end, because we turned it around so it was profitable.
Was it because you were peeved with Australia, or because you got in this situation and thought, I just want a complete change of scenery?
I was peeved with Australia, and I was peeved with Australian employees, because I didn't have to pay those employees out personally.
Right.
I was just a shareholder.
Right. Oh,
right.
That's true.
But my personal brand was associated, and I had lots of my friends and family had invested in the company.
So you weren't even a director.
No.
So you weren't obligated. In fact, you were on the other side thinking, hey,
I'm a
where's my
creditor.
shareholding gone?
Yeah,
I'm a creditor.
But I had my friends and family's money invested.
Right.
So I paid out these people who promptly snatched the check off me.
Right.
It was literally a check that I wrote them. And it was my family company name on that check, not the company they worked for.
Right.
It was my family company, my money.
Once again, you were a shareholder.
I was a shareholder.
Yeah, you were just as pissed.
And they took it, oh, thank you so much, Adam, we'll be friends forever. A month later, who am I? Nothing. They wouldn't even return my call, right? Like, they totally, 2/3 of them were angry with me.
Yeah.
That I was the guy just taking responsibility.
Right.
Maybe 1/3 of them were grateful, and none of them are friends with me to this day.
Interesting.
So looking back, I probably should have just let it go bankrupt, right? But because I got down to my mid-30s.
Because you wouldn't have been bankrupt.
No, I would have been fine. My $12 million equity was gone,
right.
But I still had 3 investment properties, and I still was worth maybe a couple of $1 million.
So what was the motivation to save it? Because you had other shareholders that...
Yeah, I had friends and family who'd invested money in it, and also I didn't want the blemish on my resume that my company
that you were
failed.
Associated, and it was yours at
Correct.
From the beginning. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't want that on my resume.
Right.
And so it didn't fail in the end. I don't know where it is now, whether it's iterated and sold again or whatever, but that taught me a lot. And then I had a couple of years runway, moved to Los Angeles and started the animation company.
Right.
Because my girlfriend always wanted to go to the States because she was a competitive fitness model.
Oh. So how long have you been in a relationship with her?
We've been in a relationship for probably 5 years at that time.
How was that different to your marriage?
What do you mean?
So that type of relationship that you had there versus your previous long-term relationship was one that was a marriage relationship.
That was marriage relationship. Yeah, totally different. I mean, she was from Warwick in country New South Wales.
Yep.
Great chick, country girl, super fun, grew up with 3 brothers, all in the military, all larrikins, all lads, and a farm girl.
Perfect.
Yeah. She was just good fun, and we met, a few years after my marriage had ended, and we ended up being together for, I think, 12 years. long time.
Never got married.
Never got married. She didn't want to get married, didn't want kids. She's still, well, funny, she's married now,
Right.
which I couldn't believe. I could have knocked me over the feather
Right.
because she's such a larrikin of a person.
Right.
But yeah, we were together and we went to LA together, and she was a competitive fitness model, which means she was like in the bodybuilding contest, but not where they flex, so bikini contests.
Okay.
So you got to do all the dieting and the exercise. She's a full fitness fanatic.
Okay.
And so
Did you want to get married?
I didn't really feel any compulsion to.
Okay.
No, we were just both happy.
Okay, great.
And we got there, and the funny story was we got there, and I'm trying to set up a company and get a visa.
Yeah.
I got what they call an L1 visa. They don't use them very much now, but it was a real mission to get a business visa. I had to invest money, and I had to show my results, and it was. And she had just won Miss Bikini California.
Yep.
And the immigration attorney says, "Have you got any talents?" And she goes, "Well, I'm Miss Bikini California." She said it joking. You're joking? She goes, "Really? Oh, that's very interesting. We could probably get you a green card on that." And I'm like, "Are you shitting me?" And she, sure enough, within 90 days, had a green card.
You had a body, you had skill.
So American. You're hot. You're not.
You're not, yeah. Just well, you're smart. Okay, we'll get you back, mate.
No, I didn't even get my green card. I tried for 5 years to get a green card. She got it in 90 days.
You were
she
the
was hot.
handbag. Were you the
My
handbag?
God, I was the, I don't know what, I was the handbag.
The training spouse.
I was the, what do they call
Trailing
it?
spouse.
Oh, God.
As expats, like in Singapore, and it's the trailing spouse. Although my ex was not a trailing spouse. She was good enough at what she did on her own. But anyway, go on.
It was so funny. But anyway, so we went over there, and then I started the animation company, and I started 5 companies in Los Angeles.
Right.
Of those 5, 2 or 3 failed, 1 wound up, and 2 became successful.
Okay, okay. This is really interesting because, you know, you look at when you hear Federer talk, he says, out of all the points that I've won, I only won about 52 or something %.
Yeah.
Right? Michael Jordan
Yeah.
had the opportunity to have missed so many more hoops that I made.
Yeah.
What's your statistic? If you look back at all the entrepreneurial things that you engaged in, out of the ones that failed to, what would it be?
I would say 90% of the businesses I started either closed just because they didn't work, not owing money or anything.
90%.
90%.
90%.
That I would have started and just closed because they weren't profitable enough, didn't work. And then I had 3 or 4 that worked.
Okay.
And you're probably talking a universe of maybe 30 attempts.
Right. Okay. Now, this is really important for the average middle-class Aussie, and even for those of us that immerse themselves into what was the corporate penitentiary, right?
Yeah.
And going, oh, I have 1 or 2 goes and hopefully I'll make it. 90% of what you attempted failed.
Yeah.
But what kept you alive? So how did you manage to keep in the game, to keep...
The alternative was unthinkable.
Which was? In your
Get a job.
Get a job.
As a man, you have to make money.
Is it just over broke?
Yeah. So as a man, you have to make money, right?
Yeah.
You just don't have an option.
Right.
So you have to make money. So if you don't make your own money, you got to make it in a job.
Right.
I cannot do a job.
Right.
I cannot.
You can't bring yourself to do a job.
No, I can't be paid to build somebody else's dream.
Right.
Can't do it. It's the old saying, if you don't build your own dream, somebody else pay to build
And you get
theirs.
hassled by somebody saying, hey, mate, you haven't done this, you
haven't done this, you do that. I can't do
Where's that
it.
report and this report?
Oh, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, I just know.
Right.
I very nearly, at that time where the public company failed, pretty much.
Yep.
And I was working for free to fund myself because all my money had gone into the company.
Right.
I started a business selling text message marketing services door to door, around working the rest of the time for the public company that I was saving.
There's a bit of a personal story here though, right, too, because there was a bit of a personal development inflection point around you starting that SMS business.
Yeah.
And was it the Chinese fish and chip owner or something?
Yeah. Singaporean.
Yeah, Singaporeans. Tell us about that, because
So
it's
that was the
important for
moment.
people to know.
Well, this is the unemployable moment, actually.
Right.
Because I was trying to turn the public company around. It wasn't happening fast enough. I wasn't able to draw a salary out of what was in the bank. Right. So I thought, well, I can't get a job because I need flexibility, plus I'm unemployable. So I need to start something. So I thought text message marketing was going nuts. So I said, all right, I'm going to create a flip chart. And it was a flip chart, literally printed out, flipping pages over to show business owners. And I'm going to go door to door and convince coffee shops and butchers and stuff I'll help them build an SMS list of their clients. And then on Friday afternoon, the butcher can send out a text and go, well, this is what I got left. Let's clear it out. Send a text and say, for the next 30 minutes, all this stuff's half price, better than throwing it out.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I went to start, I did all the thing. I got the t-shirts printed at the Paradise Point shopping mall with text and save on there. And anyway, day one, I had everything done, the shirts made, the flip chart, and I went to James Street and I said, all right, let's go, right? 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to go and talk to these business owners. And I got up and I froze. I saw the first business coffee shop, and I went, oh, they look busy. No, I won't do that one. Went to the next one, they look busy too. Next, the clothing shop, she probably wouldn't be interested. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to walk around today and get a feel for the lay of the land.
Right, okay.
And I'm going to come back tomorrow. So I did that, and I studiously looked around and took a couple of notes in my little pad.
Scoping it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I went back into my car and I sat down.
Right.
I had a Captiva at the time.
Right.
And I sat down and I was about to start the car. I still remember it vividly. And I put the flip chart down. Right. And I was about to start the car. And as Jim Rohn says, it was one of those moments where time, fate, and circumstance call a hasty conference. And they're sitting around me, and I could almost feel time, fate, and circumstance sitting in the back seat watching me.
Right.
And
Because where were you financially at this time in your life?
struggling.
Struggling.
Down to a few $1,000s in the bank.
Right.
I mean, I was desperate. I was almost about to ask Courtney's parents for a loan.
Girlfriend?
Yeah, my girlfriend.
Yeah.
For a loan. And we were living in a rental. Like prior to that, I'm talking not 12 months before, I had $12 million of equity in my public company.
Right.
4 investment properties. Now I literally was down to sub $20,000 in savings.
Right. What's your age?
34.
34. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So 34, living in a shitty rental at Runaway Bay.
Right.
No money.
Yep.
No houses.
Yep.
Broke. Pretty much broke. Right. And if you really added up my credit and shit, I was probably broke.
Right.
And I'm sitting there, about to turn the car, and I went, Adam, you and I both know that if you drive away right now,
To get back on the horse.
you're going to be faced with the same thing tomorrow. It's only 9:10.
Yep.
You either get out and face this right now, or you go home and you start looking for a job.
Yep.
So are you unemployable, or are you going to go and get a job?
Right.
And I really had this sense of moment there, and I went, I'm getting out of this car, I'm going to go back in. And I went back and I signed up Connor's Coffee Shop. People on the Gold Coast will know it. It's at the end of James Street, Burleigh.
Right.
And then I signed up 2 more coffee shops. And then the next day I signed up a guy who had the fish shop in Burleigh. And he was a Singaporean businessman who was actually a very clever, still a friend of mine to this day, Carl Wong, very clever guy who got ripped off buying that. And somebody ripped him off and he found himself trying to dig his way out of a bad business decision he made. And then that business turned into something that got me back under my feet, gave me breathing room again.
Got your confidence back.
And then I eventually exited and then moved to America.
The States with the animation business.
Started the animation business.
Right.
And the animation business, I very nearly failed that.
Right.
You know, like I started in WeWork, that I was the first WeWork tenant in Los Angeles. So for those who don't know what WeWork is, WeWork was this epic startup,
Cool sort of
multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah.
Offices all over the world. They gave co-working. They created co-working.
Oh yeah.
The idea
Surf
of it.
Corp and all those old classic mahogany row type boring.
Yeah.
This made it cool now.
So they had only 9 locations, 8 or 9 locations, and they were all New York.
Yeah.
And they just opened one in Hollywood, California, and I was the first tenant.
Right.
I was the first guy to walk in and set up, and then a few weeks later, Adam Newman came in with his head of design. Adam Newman's the famous guy behind it. So I had a very interesting journey there that I could talk about for hours. The people I met the founder of Under Armour through Adam. I met Adam. Adam gave me a private tour of his offices in New York, and I flew over to their first, camp getaway in the Adirondacks in upstate New York, and my world just took off when I went to America. But I very nearly failed at the animation company too, because I was doing my own Google ads and I didn't know how to do it. And I was getting all these leads, but they were all crap and they weren't converting. And then I hired an expert, and the expert said, oh, you're doing this, this, and this wrong. And then I started getting quality leads. And then I started, it was just me. Like the leads would come in, I would sell them. I was outsourcing the animation to India. And so I was doing the sales in America, animation in India. And then I hired a salesperson. I hired this and hired that. And in the end, we're doing 300 projects a year.
Wow.
And millions of dollars. And I sold it to two executives from one of the big TV networks. And I had Canon, MasterCard, the World Bank, Cisco, McDonald's.
All the big names.
All of these became clients within 2 years.
Wow.
Through Google, all through Google Ads.
Wow.
And that got me sort of on my feet again. I had a flight simulation company. I had a fitness magazine. I met Tom Bilyeu, you know.
Tom Bilyeu?
So Tom Bilyeu was running Quest Nutrition, and I sold him advertising space in my fitness magazine. And I personally spoke to Tom before he exited for $1 billion.
Yeah, right.
I met some incredible people.
Grant Cardone?
Yeah, I met Grant after that. That was actually after when I came back to Australia.
Okay.
And I started my Amazon business, and my Amazon journey at that time was one of my 5 businesses.
At what point did Larry King come into the picture?
So
And tell us that
story is a
before we
cool
hear
story.
about Reliable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like not many people would know this. And I went searching, not this time, but beforehand. I was speaking to a couple of weeks ago and I said, dude, like you were EP, like executive producer, and you interviewed like Larry King, as in Larry King Live? Like,
yes, yeah.
what the fuck? Like, why didn't, like, people should know this. Like, that's wild. So tell us the story.
So what happened was I was, my Amazon business was blowing up. So I was selling whiskey glasses, wine decanters. I started a poker game at my house for networking.
Right.
And I started a software company called Zonguru, which is still going today, and it's VC backed. So I had a software company. I had the Amazon business. I
didn't
had a
even know
fitness
that.
magazine.
Jesus.
I had a bunch of stuff. I met the Real Housewives of Orange County for the fitness magazine, and then they started endorsing my whiskey decanters. But through my network, one guy's job was placing products into Hollywood movies and TV shows, and he would get a commission based on what he got me into, and he got my products into this big TV show where the guy's the devil, can't think of his name, and it was on a lot of movies. Started showing my whiskey glass, which is that twisted whiskey glass.
Oh, wow. Right.
Which are quite, people would know them if they saw them, and I was selling $100,000, $50,000 a month of just this one whiskey glass, and I had in the end like a dozen. So my Amazon business was blowing up. And so I wrote a book called Primed, which was a play on Amazon Prime. And the book Primed was how I started an Amazon business, built a multi-million-dollar business selling whiskey glasses, wine decanters, and all this. And it sort of was that zeitgeist moment because Amazon was on the ascent in a big way. Jeff Bezos was making billions. So this is 2012, 2013, circa then, 2014. And so then I got a publicist, a guy by the name of Nick. And I said, Nick, I've got this book. I need to get some publicity. And he said, great. And he got me on ABC. He got me on Fox. He got me on Times Square Today, TV network television.
I remember seeing some of this.
And he said, look, Adam, would you be interested in being an EP for Larry King's life story? I said, what does it really mean being an EP? He said, well, it just means you got to give some money.
Write a check.
Write a check because we need money.
Yeah.
And I was like,
You get the credits.
so what do I get for it? He says, well, you get to come down and meet Larry at the Roosevelt. Now, my office was on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, directly opposite the Roosevelt Hotel.
Right.
So me and John, my business partner in the software company, because I had the Amazon business and we had this software startup, which I bootstrapped out of the profits of my Amazon business.
Right.
So the first build was $20,000, just me, and it got to $10,000 a month in recurring income. And then I recruited John and gave him the full $10,000 a month so he could have a salary.
Right.
And he walked away from his advertising career. He's still the CEO to this day, 10 years later. But anyway, so he rings me, Nick, and says, hey, do you want to invest in making it? And you'll get an EP credit. You get to meet Larry. And I was like, great. And you'll get to interview him. And I was like, great. This is how Hollywood works, right? So I wrote the check and I went across the road and met Larry and hung out with Larry, had dinner with him. And then I got these other opportunities. I had that one of the most extraordinary opportunities was he got me a speaking gig at the United Nations in New York.
Right.
And so I went to the New York, they had this thing on small business initiative or whatever, and I got to do a talk in the UN in New York City. But that's not the cool part.
Right.
Later that night, Nick, who's a very successful publicist, he's publicist for Tony Robbins, and like he's done extremely well. And Nick said, come back to my apartment for a whiskey and a cigar. Right. I was like, okay. So we go back to his apartment, and there's a couple of others, and I was one of his best clients because I was spending money on publicity and going all over the country for these media tours. And like earlier that day, I'd been on TV in Times Square, right? Like it was weird just turning up, and outside on Times Square was Adam Hudson on Today. And it was actually on the lights
Jeez,
running
as it's going past
on the building.
clock around the
And
building.
the show was on a balcony in Times Square shooting live. Anyway, that night, so I've done that. Then I've gone to the UN same day, and I'm at Nick's apartment in Manhattan that night. And he gives me a whiskey and he gives me this cigar. And he goes, "How do you like the cigar?" And I said, "Mate, I love it. It's fantastic." He says, "Would you like to know the history of that cigar?" I said, "I would." He said, "Well, you're actually smoking one of Winston Churchill's cigars." And I thought he meant the brand, because there's a brand, right? He goes, no. It's literally one of Winston's personal cigars. I said, "What the hell? What do you mean?" And he said there was an auction at Sotheby's where Winston's assistant through the war, because he was constantly smoking.
Right, yeah.
Quite often he'd just stub it out after two things because there was something going on. He collected all those half-smoked,
all the ones he necked.
cigars that weren't finished.
Right.
And the guy's family sold them at auction, and Nick bought some of them, broke them up, had them remade into smaller cigars for his best clients.
Oh my God.
So I'm literally in Manhattan smoking one of Winston's actual cigars.
But his laughing gear had been around.
Amazing, you know. As
Lord.
So America, like I look back on my life, and I've had these unbelievable moments of, and then of course I came back to Australia, and
But with Larry though, that at the dinner, is there anything that stuck out from the dinner? Like a learning for yourself, or a question that you asked him that you'd always wanted to ask him or something? Or
well, just being that close to somebody that famous, with that, like he has met everybody. I mean, he's interviewed everybody, all the power brokers, all the politicians, presidents, everybody. But it was just a simple story, you know. He's a Jewish kid, you know, who was always just genuinely fascinated by people and wanted to know their stories. And he told some amazing stories. I've got the video somewhere where he was talking, when I interviewed him, he told me this story about how he was with his first gig. And, you know, I won't go into it now.
you're going to have to show the interview.
But being that close to somebody of that caliber, at the time he was making $20 million a year as a TV anchor
or whatever.
And I got some of those moments of meeting really seriously famous people. And in America, being that close to celebrity is quite interesting. The dynamic of fame, and it was cool. It just and it opened my eyes. And after that, I couldn't really go back. And meeting Adam Newman and seeing what they were doing at WeWork, and you know, when we went to the WeWork camp, you know, we were sitting around. There was probably 200, 400 of us, something like that. It was all his tenants amongst who could go. And a seaplane landed as we're playing volleyball. I'm playing volleyball with Adam Newman, right? Like for those who've watched the Netflix documentary, he went on to, he's a billionaire now, right? But he was multi-billionaire at that time. And a seaplane lands, and this dude gets off in a pair of shorts, and he goes, "Oh, this is our fireside chat." And he'd flown in from New York City, whoever it was, I didn't know who it was. He said, "How many people here own a piece of Under Armour?" And everybody's like, "Us." He goes, "Well, this is Kevin Plank, the founder, who was worth $6 billion then." Right. He came and just sat down with us, and we could just ask him questions. And I look back on it now, and I'm just like, this is wild. But, and then Adam took me back to the city, and we went and looked at 6 of his WeWork locations, and he took me through and gave me a backstage tour, basically, of his business as he was building it. But yeah, I mean, America was an amazing, amazing experience. And this is why I say to young people today, you should go and experience and engage, because once you've seen that, it changes you, and your perspective of the world changes. And you can't go back to the same.
Being out of Australia, taking off the blinkers and realizing that, and the same with the Americans, there's so many that don't have passports, but getting a taste of what is possible internationally in different cultures and what makes people successful and not successful. Such a great education. So, all right, and then Reliable Education happened. That was a success. And then, you know, when you and I met a few years ago, there was something going on in Adam. So as we now sort of bring this to perhaps the final chapter of this interview to sort of land this, what's the last few years, you know, you've broken a relationship, you know, you were with Cass. What's been happening? What happened that all of a sudden there's another inflection point in Adam Husner's life, where he's just, as you've said a few times, blown it up. What was going on inside of you that you thought, huh?
Yeah, so look, I've had a bit of a midlife crisis in full public display. And all I'll say about the marriage breakup is that there was no infidelity involved in that. And there was no, I don't want to go into the details of it, other than to say I didn't cheat on her and she didn't cheat on me. So there was none of that. There was none of that. We just got to a point where we decided that it was best to go our separate ways. That's probably as much as I'll say about it. But outside of that, turning 50 was a really, really profound moment for me.
Right.
And it was right on the day. It wasn't around 50, it was on the day. And the profound moment was I lived in the best building on the Gold Coast, at least at one point. It probably isn't now, there's maybe newer ones and whatever, but I lived in this very exclusive building, 7 apartments, all 1 per floor, and I was the poorest guy in the building by a mile, right? So it was built by a very famous Australian business couple who are multi-billionaires who retained 2 of the apartments. I lived in a section of the beach on the Gold Coast where there's 21 blocks of land and there's probably 6 billionaires out of 21 blocks, right?
Wow.
It is the most exclusive part of the Gold Coast, and I was in the most exclusive building, and I say that just to highlight the fact that I was, for all intents and purposes, at the peak of my level of success, right? Like I'd gotten to a point where money didn't matter to me anymore. And so what I mean, and other people need a lot more than what I had attained. But for me, I kind of just lost interest in chasing money. So what happened on my 50th was and people are probably wondering how. It was because I had reliable education and I invested all of the money into commercial real estate. And that commercial real estate went through COVID and doubled or tripled in value. I had commercial buildings. I had a caravan park with a business partner, and multiple businesses. And Bitcoin. I bought Bitcoin, early. And so all my chickens came home to roost. So the short story is mid-30s, I was on the brink of asking my girlfriend's parents for a loan. Mid to late 40s, I was a multi-decade millionaire, right? So in 10 years.
Tens of millions.
Tens of millions. So the people watching this, it can happen pretty quickly after lots of failure, right? Anyway, so I got to this point and I'm living with a brand new Porsche, a beautiful $7 million apartment, and I turned 50. And I get into the elevator and my neighbors upstairs, who are lovely people, farmers, beautiful people, and they left 2 balloons in the lift because we all know each other in the building. And so we'll text each other because I'm the only one that lived there. Everybody else, it was their second home, right? And so they'd say, Adam, or Cass, could you go do this or do that? And we'd let each other into each other's apartments and everybody knows everybody and everyone's very lovely. So they left the big 50 balloons, the silver 50 balloons, right?
Yeah, another ones.
Yeah. And I pull them out of the lift and I put them into the living room and I'm looking at them and it just stopped me dead in my tracks. And there's the 50 balloon, there's the most stunning view that you could ever hope to have in your life, full floor apartment on the beach, 330 square meter apartment. And I'm looking at the 50 and I'm like, oh my God, like what triggered was all of my life up until then, I'd gone past, because I live in Main Beach, right? When I was in Australia. And there's lots of 50th birthdays, right? The ladies or the guys turning 50. And I would say, look at those old farts, right, in there, with their old music, with their 50 balloons floating in the restaurant. It was just it was so ingrained in me. I was like, that's old people stuff. And all of a sudden, that was me. Those balloons just triggered it like a ton of bricks. But it also triggered that I'm probably now, if I live to 100, I'm doing great. But there's no guarantee. And statistically, you're probably more likely to live to 50 than you are to 100, right? So I got a few mates that have departed, and more it seems to be happening of cancer or suicide or something. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I got to start doing stuff. And And I was, all of a sudden, I just felt this churn of like, yeah. And then I asked myself, I was sort of pushing in business again. And I went, do I want to build this again? I was out of Reliable.
Yep.
And I was starting the podcast, and I was like, hang on, Adam.
Because you took a break for about a year. You went a bit traveling as well.
I did some traveling, yeah. And I was like, do you want to wind up in business again and double down and try and make another $10 million? Like,
back into the familiar zone.
Yeah.
Muscle memory.
What difference is it going to make? What, are you going to get a better apartment? You're going to get a better car? I took delivery of a brand new
Is that going to fill the hole?
4S Porsche, my dream car with a whole roof that went back. And
I remember just on that, one night you picked me up and said, mate, and I went in the car with you.
Yeah.
He said, look, I just got this. And I remember looking at you going, it's a nice car.
It's not going to do anything for you.
Right. And it's like you were looking at me going, it's like,
I was just buying stupid shit trying to fill a hole, right?
Right.
I'd just gotten rid of my Ferrari and I'd bought the Porsche and I'd had watches and I'd had all the fancy holidays but I was so unhappy. I was just not happy. And that sort of went to, why aren't I happy?
Right.
I should be happy.
Right.
But I'm not. And it was because I looked around a main beach and I looked at the people and I was like, sorry if there's people watching this main beach, but I wasn't genuinely inspired by many people that I saw.
Yeah.
They weren't.
It's a beautiful place.
It's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
But not just main beach, the Gold Coast general. Like I just didn't see, I wasn't inspired, but what was I inspired to? I found myself being drawn to the streets of Italy and the culture and wanting to grow my own food or just have more cultural experiences. And like, by comparison, fast forward nearly 2 years now, this morning I got on my scooter here in Bali and my senses were filled with the incense burning on the offerings that the women put out every morning here.
Yeah.
And I can hear there's chickens on the street. Yeah. And you see, I went to the coffee shop and a young girl, she would have been 25, and she's gently pushing the smoke off the incense, but like really purposefully and intentionally. Right. And I'm watching the water run down the makeshift drains and the density of the greens and these walls that are covered in green moss and the smell of
getting present.
Yeah, of a bakery and an incense and a chicken. And there's just something sensorily very rich about Bali that I can just feel in my blood. I can feel it, Right. I feel alive here in a way that I feel free here.
Connected.
I felt it when I moved to Cyprus. You moved to Cyprus.
Yep.
When I'm in Cyprus, I'm walking around and I can feel this sense of history, and not everybody's talking about maths, property prices, fuel prices, how fucked Australian politicians are.
Right.
There's none of that.
Yeah, maths.
In the Greek islands and Cyprus at 5 or 6, everybody's turning up at the cafes and having a glass of wine, not getting drunk, but meeting their friends and sitting there till sundown.
The old boys.
All the old boys.
Talking politics, arguing, having civil discord.
Yes.
Yep, they're all doing that.
And
it's community.
And that's what I was craving is I was just so done with, what do you think that'll sell for? And what do you think is happening with interest rates? Where do you think the market's going?
Transaction.
Oh my God, if I have one more discussion about where the market's going or what do you think the yields will be, I will literally shoot myself in the head.
Right, yeah.
Right? Or one more seminar to attend or one more personal development book to read.
Right.
I was so done.
Right.
And I wanted a life that was just, and it's been really challenging. Yeah. Ultimately, my marriage failed earlier this year, and it was the hardest thing, apart from my mum dying. I'm still not through it at all emotionally. I'm still dealing with it.
Right.
Because I think when you get divorced at 50, it hits different, and I was only married for 2 years.
Yep.
And it's brought up all kinds of very, very difficult things for me to process.
Right. If you look at it as failure rather than part of the journey.
Yeah. I'm still in. Yeah.
Again, though, things changed inside you.
Yeah.
That kicked that off.
Yeah, definitely. There's the postmortem will continue for a while, but yes. But anyway, I turned 50 and now it's just time to really I didn't want to, I've got friends, you know, like that are worth hundreds of millions, even billions. I've got several billionaire friends. And I look at them and there's absolutely nothing about their life that I crave, right? Because I've had enough of the stuff to know what the stuff actually does.
Yep.
Like it ends up owning you.
Yeah.
Like right now I have 3 suitcases and one of those is full of podcasting gear. Right. So 2 suitcases and I feel like I've got too much. Right. And so I'm on this sort of journey now. I am building a home here in Bali because I want to have a base. Yep. I don't want to be a consistent nomad.
Yep.
But now I'm really, my values have changed so much. And
right.
now I'm in a very, very different place. I'm certainly not finished, but I'm not interested in, you know.
Has it been also, it's been all externally kind of motivated, building up all this stuff. You got confident, you knew you were good at it. Once again, for people to take home, 90% were failures, but you managed to protect your capital, if you want to talk about it financially, enough, although close a couple of times, right? And that became an addiction, being a serial entrepreneur. But is it now that Adam is actually starting to learn really who Adam is? More so?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, business is so pervasive and it's impossible for it not to invade every aspect of your life. It's a third passenger in every marriage. It is absolutely pervasive and it's everywhere. If you're an entrepreneur, it's impossible. And it's getting more that way because it's getting harder and compliance is getting stronger and governments are getting hungrier.
Right.
So I'm optimizing my life for simplicity now. And I'm trying to get, like, the number one thing I'll ask is how much of an invasion into my life is this going to be? How much, like when I'm choosing a jurisdiction to put my company, it's how much compliance is there? Right. I'd rather, you know,
so compliance is fine, but how tight are the rules on all of this where you get suffocated and
once I'm out
taken
of it,
for a ride?
Yeah, when I went back to Australia recently, I've been out now for, you know, a year, and I went back and it was hard to get out of the system and very expensive. Like I had to pay CGT on all my buildings that I sold, but then all your assets that you don't sell, you have to do deemed disposal. So they value all your assets, you got to pay capital gains on it even though you haven't sold it. So it's an expensive exercise.
You haven't realised yet, but you got to pay it.
Yeah.
Right, nice.
It's unrealised capital gains.
Yeah.
It exists now when you want to leave the country.
Right.
Anyway, so it's expensive to do it. But now that I've done it and I've been out and I've been living predominantly in countries that are far freer, like Cyprus is much less controlled than Australia.
Mediterranean in general.
Bali, there's no traffic lights here hardly. You know, like I don't have to wear a helmet if I don't want to. And if I do get caught, I pay someone 100,000.
Right.
It was $5 and the policeman says, carry on, you idiot. If you can kill yourself, good luck.
Okay,
But when I went back to Australia just a few weeks ago, I got off the plane and I got a phone call. And it was an Indian guy saying he was from the Australian Bureau of Statistics and needed me to do a survey. And I thought it was a prank call, of course, and it's hung up. Rings back. Now it's an Australian telling me, I'm like, I don't have to I don't want to do your survey. You have to. I'm like, no, I don't. There's no such thing. I'm convinced it's a prank. Then they ring me the next day and say, Mr. Hudson, this is not a prank. I said, all right, tell me what companies I have. And they listed my Australian companies that I'm winding up. I went, oh, who's my accountant? They listed that too. Okay, so this is real. I said, all right, how many questions? They said 67. I said, all right, I don't want to answer the 67 questions. What's the fine? They said $350. I said, do you take credit card? And they said, no, it's $350 a day that you don't comply, right? And I literally said to them, geez, I'd love to be able to have a business where I could call people up and say, give me $350 a day. And if you don't give it to me, I'm going to send somebody around with a gun to arrest you and put you in jail. That's the business racket you're running. I was so pissed off. And anyway, so they sent it over. I did this stupid survey. And then once I get them off the phone and I'm driving on, then I see a copper hiding in the bushes in his van trying to get me for speeding and everybody else that drives past, which is just another tax.
Yep.
And then I pull up at the lights at Southport and there's the red light cameras and there's the overhead cameras looking in, trying to catch people on their phones. And I'm just like, this is becoming a police state. It is everywhere. And I didn't realize the cognitive load that was being taken up
Back in.
as a business person.
Right.
Thinking about Division 7A loans, GST, tax returns, looking in the Channel 9 news. This year, the ATO is cracking down on these 5 things, which always comes out around when? May,
Tax return time.
mid-May, whenever
Let's get our
the
maximum
finance
yield
year,
out of the tax.
end of the tax year when people are making those decisions
Yep.
and when your tax returns are due.
Go figure.
And it's just
Marketing.
all designed, right? Fear, control,
Yep.
get that money.
Yep.
But being a business person, everybody's optimizing and finding it. And now that I've left and I've set myself up in an appropriate way, I've done it clean. I haven't done it dirty. I paid more tax than most people ever pay, trust me. But now that I'm out, the bandwidth that is freed up in my head, I'm sleeping. I had real problems for years sleeping through the night. I tried sleeping tablets. I tried everything. Couldn't get a good night's sleep. I'm finally sleeping through the night.
Yeah, right.
It's just, I've just stopped. And I've realized, and I've said it on a pod once before, I overshot the runway by so far. I have way more than I could ever need.
Right.
Once you get off I need more, I need to compete with the Joneses. I don't own a house. I don't own a car. I bought this in Limassol, Cyprus.
As a reminder.
It's €59. It's a Casio digital watch that I saw in the window that reminded me as a kid when I thought this was the coolest watch in the world.
Right.
My Rolex is sitting in a storage safe deposit box.
Not because you're
in
a
Australia.
Scrooge. It's like, that's almost
like
symbolic
this watch.
of your freedom, and you like it because it's cool.
Yeah, I like it because it's cool.
No matter how much it costs to show off. It's like,
I don't give a fuck about showing off anymore, but
Yeah.
it's easy for me to say because I've had all the show off things.
Yeah, right.
Right. So it's easy for me to say, but you do, once you do get to that point where you just go, you know what, I don't want to play at an Olympic level anymore.
Right.
Australians in entrepreneurship, they play the Olympic level. It's great. Go do it. Yeah. But make sure you leave enough time on the clock to actually live and go and enjoy it. And now I'm learning to spend the money well. Like some of the most fantastic memories I've had recently have been with you.
Right.
In Cyprus.
The boat.
And our friend, Anita. And I go, right, guys, let's go out, right? It's a beautiful day. And we'd book that boat.
Yeah.
And we'd hire the staff and we would go out. It cost us €800.
I haven't seen you happier, like in the years I've known you.
Yeah.
And the times you'd say, it's like, how good is this? How good
But how good was it?
Right.
It was like we're going out on a glass on the Mediterranean.
Oh, it was magic.
We had the in excess pumping.
Not expensive.
Not expensive. €800
€800
a day
for the day.
With the 2 crew, and they were serving us champagne and giving us the water toys, and we would jump over and just the 3 of us having an amazing time. And then we'd go and have dinner on the docks there. And it was just an extraordinary memory that I'll have forever.
Yeah.
And that's living and learning to, I'm about to go to Panama,
Right.
and to get some stem cells. And my best mate's arriving here in Bali. And I just said to him 2 days ago, I said, do you want to come with me?
Right.
He's like, I can come.
Okay.
So I bought him a business class seat. I said, well, seeing as we're going,
Right.
why don't we go via Cyprus and we'll go and hang out with Tommy. Instead of a few days, we'll go and get the boat. And then
cool.
Because what I looked at was to get you can't go direct from Bali to Panama.
Yeah.
So you can go direct from Istanbul.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, perfect. So we're going to go from here to Cyprus, but we're going to go via Doha. It was one of my favorite hotels in Doha.
Yeah.
So I purposely stayed over in Doha to take him to Raffles.
Yeah.
So we go to Raffles because we've got the best cigar bar. We're going to stay one night there in this fuck off suites. So we've got these 2 amazing suites. And then we're going from Doha to Cyprus, and then we're going from Cyprus to Turkey, to Istanbul for a few days, and then we're going to go to Istanbul to Cyprus. To Panama. And I thought, this is what am I going to do otherwise? You got to learn to spend money, right? You got to learn to enjoy your money.
Yeah.
And for me now, that's what I love, just with friends. Enjoy it with friends. And the house I'm building here is going to be open to all of my friends and family. And just like the door's open, I've got staff. Come and enjoy. Like stay.
Yeah. No, and I've seen this change in you even the first time you came to Bali, and I could hear you, like I haven't heard you before, like your speed of speech had slowed down. Mm-hmm. You were chilled, decompressed more than I'd ever heard you before. And I thought, holy shit, dude. It's like, I haven't heard you like this before. You're like chilled. Because when we'd catch up, I think you always felt like also, and with everybody, that there was a responsibility on you to deliver something, and you were locked in gear around transactional mode because that had been most of your life.
Yeah, and the irony in business is that as the business grows, the more people depend on.
More stuff's coming at you.
Yeah.
More transactions demanding decisions.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, Reliable was a great business.
Yeah.
But we had tons of staff that were paying their mortgages and,
Right.
they were all reliant.
So you're carrying on that.
We had
carrying that responsibility.
17,000 clients, 17,000
Well.
students in 43 countries.
Right.
And every single sale was done by me.
Jesus.
We had no salespeople.
Holy shit.
17,000 sales through a webinar that I did or a talk that I did. 100% of the sales was from me.
Right.
Now, this is to take nothing away from my business partner, Joe, who I would not have been able to do it without.
Yeah.
Joe was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But it's
You're
just,
on the pointy end.
but the point is,
holding it together.
he was the engine
operationally.
behind, but
Yeah.
I was on that front line. Like we sold $70 or $80 million worth of courses and coaching,
Right.
but it was a couple of us doing it.
Yeah.
But without me, this face being out there and telling the story
right.
and at the same time having to keep up my own successful Amazon business while I'm running a successful 8-figure education business.
Yep.
It was a lot, dude. Like I didn't have when I broke up with Courtney,
Yeah.
and then I went into building Reliable, I didn't have a girlfriend. Joe was my girlfriend.
Right.
And I had thousands of students and clients and people, and I was on stage with Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, Gary Vee. I was touring, and I never had more opportunity to get women.
Right.
And I didn't have any.
Yeah.
Not one until right at the very end.
Yeah.
And I had no girlfriends, no dating, no even flings.
Right.
Right. I was just 100% locked in.
Right.
Building that business and buying commercial property,
Right.
and Bitcoin.
Right.
So yeah, that was. But afterwards, it's taken me 2 years to come off the drugs.
I can see it. I can see it. I mean, I've had a front seat to a lot of this, especially over the last few months with me by chance, same time, sort of ish, moving to Cyprus. And how we've lived actually similar lives since you have left.
Yeah, very similar lives.
Right, which is really interesting. And I want people to understand this, and we kind of made that point when you interviewed me. Then as we sort of land this, I mean, if I ask Adam Hudson now, are you happy?
I'm well on my way.
Right.
Yeah, I have my days now where I've never been depressed in my life.
Yeah. So,
But in the last year, there were days where I was depressed.
right.
The worst of it was when I did the Freedom Summit earlier this year, which was the most successful event that we ran.
Yeah.
And everybody loved it. And it was a high for so many people. And we raised $400,000 for charity. And by all metrics, it was an overwhelming success. I was at the depths of the worst I've been in years.
Right.
I was really in a bad place.
Right.
Like I had bad thoughts.
Right.
For the first time in my life.
Interesting.
I had bad thoughts. And I didn't obviously carry out any of them, but for the first time in my life, I realized I've lost a few mates to that path
Right.
in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand it, but I could understand it. And it's not to do with, because of my partner was so horrible or mean or anything. It's just, I was very hard to reconcile many aspects of what I went through. And it was very sad it was very sad. It's the only way to put it. So I have days now where I do feel like I'm in a dream and not a good one. Like I feel disconnected from reality,
Yeah.
but there's much fewer of those days
Right.
than there were earlier in the year. But definitely my public persona and my private reality were quite different for extended periods there.
Right.
And luckily I had mates like you and a few others that were sounding boards.
Yep.
And were just there enough at the time that I needed them to be.
Right. Well, I mean, as a friend back as well, I mean, you've sort of come into my life at a very interesting phase as well. And it's like how we've sort of yinned and yanged. And that, I always felt we kind of met for some reason because we kept intersecting as we drifted. We intersect,
Yeah.
in that time when, relationship with Cass and whatever, and let's go and grab a coffee, because having been too divorce experienced, how I could sort of perhaps provide some sort of frame of reference for you to, see how you're going to move forward with things. Okay, couple of questions, then to just finish off. And I think for the viewers, if someone's listening right now and they feel stuck, that they can't either break out of their familiar zone in business in where they've got a job and looking to go into business and be an entrepreneur. And then the other side of it, like you now, coming out of it, where they feel stuck, they're still feeling a bit empty. They've got all the financial trimmings, but stuck in sort of making that leap into, I don't need to do this anymore. What do you want them to know about themselves?
Interesting. I'll answer the first one just quickly. For people who are wanting to start in business, I think the best coach in the world right now is Alex Hormozi for people who want to go into business.
Right.
He's amazing. He's so articulate. He speaks at 6th grade level. He does not try to be complicated. And he's just right about most things. Alex is incredible.
You started at a similar time as him, right?
Yeah,
Doing the
interesting.
bouncing thing?
Yeah, when I built Reliable Education, we used a software called ClickFunnels.
Right. Yeah.
And we won an award, which is the 8-figure award. When you've done $10 million in sales, they give you this trophy. Well, at that same event that I was getting the $10 million award, Alex and Layla, before they were Alex and Layla, got the $100 million award, the next one up.
Right.
And this is Alex before he was Alex.
Right.
So he's ascended beyond everybody now, you know, including, and Russell's a superstar, Russell Brunson. But I'd say that even Alex is a notch up from Russell now. So Alex Hormozi, superstar, amazing. So that was in Nashville, actually, Tennessee, where I did that. Anyway, but so if you're thinking about going to business, just follow Alex Hormozi for a while.
Right.
And I think, you know, from there, you'll find your path.
Start as a side hustle?
Yeah, start as a side hustle. You know,
until it becomes the main hustle.
Until it becomes a main hustle. Gary Vaynerchuk's amazing as well. Gary's got a really great perspective. I've toured with Gary. I've done 3 cities with Gary. Yeah, so Gary and Alex, go there. For the people who are like getting into their time in their life where they're just, maybe they've gone through a marriage or a breakup, or they know that they should, because, you know, they've gotten to a point where it's just become clear and they're just sitting there in an unhappy situation. I've had friends go through it recently, and I said to a friend recently, I said, look, you've got 2 choices here. You either need to go all in to fix your marriage. And take this for what you want, because you're talking to a guy that's just come out of a failed marriage. But you've either got to go all in to fix it.
2 of us.
Yeah, 2 of us. So you've either got to go all in to fix it, or you've got to stop it. It's just one or the other. And that's sort of where you get to in your 50s, I think. You sort of just get to this point where you're just like, I just don't have time for the middle anymore. Right? I think women go through menopause. And what happens with the women is that loving, nurturing buffer that they carry through younger years that enables them to put up with enormous amounts of bullshit as, you know, being a mother.
From the guys as well.
Well, yeah, whatever. That cloud of just disappears.
The love cushion goes.
Yeah, well, I think it happens for guys too, in a different way. And at age 50, I just, you know, what was the word? I can't remember, but anyway, you just basically don't put up with bullshit anymore. You don't want to suffer fools. Sounds like the crows here have just found their voice.
The roosters, yeah,
the roosters. But I think it's you've got to really just get real and go. You know, you're in Sniper's Alley now. You don't know how long you've got. You know, I just went and got a scan, a full body scan, because my mum died at 58.
Ballsy.
Yeah, you should do it. Everybody over 50 should do it. And I went to Brisbane Radiology, asked for Angela Sklavos, she's the owner. Sklavos. Sclavos.
Okay.
Yeah. And anyway, I went and did this, and they take 7,000 images of every aspect of your body from head to toe. They'll pick up anything that's in your body. And I have a 1.5 centimetre lesion on my pancreas, which thankfully is benign, but needs to be monitored. And I now know. But if I didn't know, and I was one of these guys that didn't monitor, you know, I could start feeling crook in 5 years from now and go, what's going on? And you go, well, dude, you've got stage 3 pancreatic.
It's pancreatic.
Stage 4.
Good
it's a serious problem. So, so all I would say to those other people is, you know, read the book Die With Zero, right? It's a great book. And it's all about, like, it's the first book I've ever read that teaches you how to spend money and not just make it. And it's written by a guy called Bill Perkins, I think, wrote it. And it's a phenomenal book. And I realized I'd become so good at making money, like starting businesses, generating a profit, investing into, I could see a commercial real estate opportunity with like that. you know?
Yeah. No, you
Like,
can see many opportunities.
many
You're a
opportunities.
machine.
That building, I built a building for $1.7 million. I just knew it was a steal, and I sold it 2 years later for 4.5, you know?
But even as business generally,
Just
the ideas
yeah.
you come up with, which is like one of your superpowers, apart
Yes.
from being so incredibly articulate and no BS, is the way that you can see an opportunity and then you can just distill it down
Yeah.
to this, and that, and this. And
But that's 30 years. That's 30 years of obsession, you know? And you see that very last bit of my career where now when I say my success rate's 90-10,
yeah.
the 10%, there might have been one success when I was in my early 20s,
Right.
but the rest of them all came towards the end of my career, you
Right,
know, the real
right.
home runs.
Yeah.
And it's just I got good in the end,
Yeah.
right? Because I learned so much from failing.
It's all muscle memory.
Yeah, hopefully it happens in love the same way.
It will. It will.
Actually, but for now, I still gonna get a dog. But the point is, I think, you know, if you're in that situation, over 50, you're not happy, you got to say it out loud. I'm not happy.
Right.
And you've got to talk to your partner. And
The juice isn't worth the squeeze at the moment.
yeah. And when I did that with my partner, we made a plan.
Yeah.
And then as we moved towards that plan, it fell apart.
Right.
And so, but you know, ultimately I know that I will look back on this maybe in a year from now or 2 years from now, and I'm going to go, holy shit, 2025 was an amazing year for you, Adam. It was incredibly painful and one of your worst in some ways.
And one of your best.
But also one of your best, because I feel like there's a life coming, to leave it on a positive note, that I'm going to be really happy in, and it's not going to be infested with business.
Right. Festive with business, isn't it? It's like sharks. So then what's the legacy you want to leave? And then the other question will be, so knowing what you know now, what would you tell young Adam now being this far down the Adam journey?
Oh, there's so many answers to that question. I've got a whole range of advice I'd give myself about relationships, but I don't want to put those on the pod. But things that I would know about myself that I wouldn't do, that I would take responsibility for. And with business, I think, you know, Alex Hormozy has a very simple model for business, which would have saved me a lot of time.
Interesting.
Which was just a little pyramid, 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. And if you're going to start a business, are you solving a real problem? Step number 1. Is there a hungry crowd that really wants what you have? And a lot of entrepreneurs get excited about ideas that are not really fixing a problem, that people wake up in the morning and just really got a problem. They're sort of doing something slightly better, but it's not really a real problem or a real hunger. And I've seen it on the pod when we've had guests on that have something. Some pods go the moon because the thing that person's talking about is just bang on what people are feeling, you know? Like the Tommy Robinson pod, boom, you know? Or if it's a business opportunity, boom. Another one's just, you know, noise.
Noise, yeah.
So a lot of business ideas are noise. So Alex is, you know, is it really, really solving a real painful problem? 2, can the people who need to buy the thing afford it? Really afford it? Like, is it, you know, can you reach them at scale online? Right. So if where are they coalesced? If they're not coalesced around the major platforms, you can't access them. It doesn't matter whether you've got the best thing in the world and they can afford it if you can't reach them. And is it a growing market or is it a declining market? Because if you go into a declining market, you have to be growing just to stay stagnant. So just really, really break down and temper your enthusiasm, because entrepreneurs tend to be optimistic by default, and optimism can be very expensive.
I think I've been subject to that.
Yes.
I think the eternal optimist.
Yes, and it's expensive.
And it's expensive.
And you hear people, and it extends to people. You give people way too much credit. You accommodate way too much bullshit.
I've done that.
And you know, the old saying, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
Right.
Don't try to fix them.
Don't,
You know, don't try to
even in
overlay a
relationships
narrative.
too.
Well, this goes into, you know,
things.
goes back to your stuff as a guy. Sometimes men want to rescue people and they want to be the good guy for their own, so they look like the good guy. You know,
or to get love.
To get love
in a relationship.
There's all these lessons.
All these things, right?
So, so I think it's just being a realist in business. Like business just rewards solving real problems. and being a good judge of character and people that you work around.
Yeah.
My biggest business success was with Joe, right? And Joe is an incredible human being. Like he's an incredible operator. So had a great business partner, and we were solving a real problem at a fair price.
Yeah.
And we were hitched to Amazon, the fastest growing company for a decade.
Right.
Probably the most successful company in the world for a decade, and we were teaching people how to do that.
Right.
So all the stars aligned after sort of average ideas.
Yeah.
We had this one magical idea,
Yep.
and we scaled to $1 million a month quickly.
Right. It's sort of similar to Ikigai as well, who's got the 4 things.
Yeah.
You know, the little blue book.
Yep.
You know, what you're passionate about, what the world needs, what
Yeah.
you can make money from.
Yep.
And what's the 4th one? Something the world needs.
Yeah.
And there's a 4th one.
What you're good at or something.
Yeah.
But yeah,
what you're good
those
at.
models, like those models are true. But just keep the enthusiastic, optimistic. It's the old saying, like Jim Rohn was one of my earliest mentors, and Zig Ziglar. When I was selling vacuum cleaners, I used to play Zig Ziglar tapes in the van that would take us out to the calls because he was a motivational coach. And Zig and Jim had this argument on stage, and Zig said, Jim, you just got to motivate him.
Right.
And Jim looked at him and said, what happens if you motivate an idiot?
Yeah, right. You still got a problem.
You've got to educate them.
Right. Yeah,
So Jim was about education, and a lot of entrepreneurs are optimistic and enthusiastic, but that's sort of like just putting your ladder against any wall and climbing it enthusiastically.
yeah, right. Right.
Whereas when you get older, you're like, hang on a second, let me take a good look at these walls first.
Yes, yeah.
Like, firstly, what's holding the bricks together?
Been up those walls before, like you don't want to go up there.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's just survey the walls first before we start climbing.
Yeah.
So that's it with business. It'll spend a lot of time being enthusiastic about bad ideas.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay.
And so that basically be it. But for me, I'm just like that the thing on the side of the road where you see those airfield things that they keep falling down, just keep getting up, or those you can knock me down 1,000 times,
wind
and I just
at the service station things. Yeah.
I just stay. I'll just consist. I get kicked and I'm back up.
Keep back up again.
I just keep going.
Yeah.
But that was really because I could just never, ever, ever be told what to do. I could not be in a job.
Right.
Yeah, just couldn't do it.
Freedom thing.
Yeah.
And I think then as we land this, leaving the legacy, there's John Fawcett Foundation. There's the girls in Sri Lanka, the orphanage.
Yeah.
And you've done a lot for those organizations over a number of years.
And the microloans. I've done 20,000 interest-free microloans.
I didn't even know about that one. Holy shit, I keep learning new
I'm one
things
of the
there.
biggest microloan lenders in the world. So I've done, yeah. They emailed me and invited me over to the head of, I've done 20,000 interest-free microloans.
Where? Where is it?
Mostly through Africa, all over the world, about 80% of them to women. So I've done 20,000 of them now. One of the biggest loan books out there. And I've got the Sri Lankan charity, we just funded, I tried to crowdfund it, but I did it myself. Replaced all their beds and all their ovens.
we were just talking about
everything
that
was
this
lost
week.
in the floods.
Yes.
And we've raised now millions of dollars for the John Fawcett Foundation, done there's literally thousands, probably tens of thousands maybe, of blind people that are no longer blind.
Right.
As a result of our integrating into our businesses. So me and my business partners who got on board and our community, so people who backed us as well. But we integrate into everything that we produce, everything we sell, we have an allocation to charity. And I keep giving because I honestly feel like the other shoe's going to drop if I don't. I'm embarrassed by, honestly, like I am sometimes. It's like I'll do something now and it's effortless.
Right.
Like a sponsorship deal or something will come in and it's tens of thousands of dollars coming in from all these angles that I just don't even expect them to come from. So I just feel like I've just got to pay it back. So I just keep doing it because I now know I've got way more than I need. So I just keep.
Right.
Sometimes it's just direct giving. Sometimes it's through charities.
Yeah.
And I say it, and I say this, and I mention this on the pod with a very mixed feeling because I don't want to sound like I'm boasting because I know that it does sound like that on the surface. Yeah. The reason I say it is because unless it's verbalized, people don't know.
Yeah.
And then if people don't know, they're not inspired to do it themselves.
Right.
And so this is why all I can say is that the Bible was right about giving, that when you give and tithe,
Comes back.
it comes back.
Yeah.
But it comes back in a multiple. And people, if you're running a business, go, man, these are the good guys. I like these guys.
Right.
And so I think there's nothing wrong with giving and telling people, hey, we do this. And I tell people I've done 20,000 Kiva loans,
Right.
interest-free to entrepreneurs in third world countries.
Right.
And
Wow.
people don't know this stuff. And again, going back to the Muslim Christian thing, I've probably given 80% of it is probably to Muslims.
Right. Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I think they all gaslight us, but
Yeah.
that's the religion. That's not the human
That's the
being,
religion.
the
That's not the
people.
people.
I love the people.
Yeah.
Right. I just hate the very few minority evil controllers.
Institution.
Yeah.
that's been
Most people
exploited
are amazing.
in a lot of cases. Yeah.
So I don't hate people ever.
Right. No.
Anyway, so but
I know
hopefully that inspires some people who are entrepreneurs that, you know, business can be really used for so much good.
Wild. So as a legacy moving forward, have you got a vision for that? Or are you still working that one out?
Not really. I mean, I would like to potentially, I was toying with the idea of building a hospital here in Bali,
Right.
which sounds bigger than it is. It's not that big a deal. It's like a couple of $1 million.
Yep.
It's not like building like a high rise,
Yeah,
you know,
$20 million.
Yeah, you know, like the proper rich people do in New York and stuff.
Rich people.
You know, but actually what JFF needs above a building, because they've got this design for it, but they said, Adam, what we really need is doctors. I said, well, what does a doctor cost? And they said, well, it's 8 years and about 120 grand or 100 grand or something to commit to putting somebody because they need Balinese locals. So I'm looking at actually taking on 1 or 2 doctors and paying the tuition over 8 years. So at the end, they are Balinese locals that have been trained and educated. So they need that.
Awesome.
So if anybody else watching is interested in maybe sponsoring a doctor, it's about 80 or 100,000 over 8 years.
It's almost a bit of a teaching them to fish type thing as well.
It's not a lot.
They'll look after each other. No, it's not.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that's probably a great place to land things. I mean, it's very exciting to see where things go for you from here, mate.
Yeah.
You know, exciting inflection. And it's always very scary to move into the unfamiliar, right? But you know, as I say quite often too, I think that's where freedom lives.
Yeah.
Is in that place that you just a little nervous about stepping into. And I think that'd be the advice I would give to people that are considering making decisions like you've made and moving overseas. You know, it's an exciting world. We don't know how long we're here, let alone Sniper's Alley at 50. You never know if tomorrow the day comes.
Totally.
You know, so living in the present, and said you've obviously got just a lot more connected and present than you are now, rather than your mind being hijacked by all the responsibilities that you've had in the past. And so it's been great to be a mate and to see you start to transform, sort of like sitting on the sidelines, and what part I've had the privilege of being in that, and sharing some of the good times and getting to know you really well. So thanks for giving the time for the interview. Hopefully people get to see a different side of Adam. They've always seen the business side.
Yeah.
And yeah, looking forward to more great times with you, mate. So
Right. It's been a pleasure.
thank you.
Let's go get some dinner.
Let's do it.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Sat Signal on Unemployable. Now, before you go, make sure you check out the 3 links in the description below. When you are a Bitcoiner, there are 3 things you need to do. You need to buy it, you need to store it, and possibly, if you're really into it, you might even want to mine it. But when it comes to buying it, we work with Stormrake, and the reason we do that as Australians is they are the easiest to buy from as a Bitcoin broker, the largest ones in the country. You have less challenges moving your money into their account to buy your Bitcoin for you. They offer a white glove service. They are Aussies. They have an office in Melbourne. They're a really good business to deal with, especially if you're first time to buying Bitcoin. So the way to contact them is go to stormrake.com/unemployable. They will look after you. When it comes to storing your Bitcoin, go to thebitcoinway.com/unemployable. They are the world leaders in helping people take full custody of their Bitcoin. So it will never be stolen from you. Don't leave it on exchanges. take custody, learn to become your own security expert. And the last people we work with is Mining Store, also an Aussie company based in Melbourne. They can show you how to mine Bitcoin 24/7. So no matter what the price is, you just keep dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin using your own Bitcoin mining gear. To learn more, go to miningstore.com.au/unemployable. With that said, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Make sure you subscribe before you leave.